You could have heard this episode 48 hours early on our Patreon, patreon.com/indieheadspodcast. By joining us for as low as $1 a month, you'll receive episodes early and gain access to our Discord server. All of our upcoming episodes will be up on our Patreon 48 hours before it hits our public podcast feeds. But if you're hearing this via our Patreon feed, we thank you so much for your support. We especially want to thank our Real Ones patrons, including Becca Etienne, Georgia Mikowski, Tyler, Marcy Anime, Chance Holdup, Delaney Miller, Rihanna Cruz, Josiah Duncan, Janela Fleur, Matt Cameron, Grant in the Back of My Dragula, Pablo Escobar's Hippos, Jackson Christ, Alec Felder, Sandy Nemo, Jeremy Bull, Drew Wharton, I Like Books, Jonathan David, Max Kapazinski, Mark Barry, Aaron Hillsamer, Darian Fisher, Cal 50, Noah's Refused Pimped Out Dave Matthews Event, Chris Wade, Jacqueline Kataga, Midwest Maxwell, Kevin John, Jake Wald, Erase Red Baby, Rob Marino, Max, Dylan, Waffle113, Gavin 490 Freak, and Maze Farms. To become a real one, consider supporting us for $5 a month on Patreon, where we'll receive a bonus episode every month and get a shout out at the top of the pod. Anyways, though, enjoy the episode.
Gavin 490 Freak is no longer working with the Indieheads podcast. By now, we're assuming you've seen the Reddit threads and TikToks and news articles. We want to give you a timeline of what's happened and some transparency into our decision making. Throughout this podcast, there will be things that we will want to say or go into further, but I'm sure you are aware that there are some legal issues we have to consider as we go through everything. On Labor Day weekend, multiple fans alerted us they had seen Gavin and the ghost of the Big Bopper engaging in public romantic behavior. We reached out to check on Gavin, and he confirmed the reports and since confirmed that this had been going on for some time, which was obviously very shocking to us. And we just want you to know that we had no idea this was going on. All of that information was just as shocking to us all as it has been for all of you this week. And thus we began a 3-week process of engaging with employment lawyers, corporate lawyers, HR, PR, Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, and more in order to make sure we were taking all the necessary steps. From the jump, we were acutely aware of just how contrary this is to the values of this podcast we've built and those of everyone who works here. This is something we take very seriously. Being spotted in a Sonic drive-thru sharing a chocolate malt shake with only one straw is something we refuse to sweep under the rug. Attending a jug band barnyard dance after sunset is not who we are and not what we stand for. There are several podcasts you will never hear due to Gavin's involvement, and that's a decision that has cost us millions of dollars. Now, we can't talk about the details of the review, but suffice to say that we found Gavin had engaged in conduct unbecoming of our team, and so we knew we could not move forward with him. So on Thursday, October 6th, the four of us signed written consent of the members of the Indieheads Podcast LLC, removing Gavin as a co-host and employee, and that's what happened.
Sorry, what is this?
It's the Try Guys thing. I don't know. We were cooking that. So.
Oh, okay. I had like not paid attention to any of that. I've just been thinking about the Mario.
You haven't been paying attention to the Try Guys?
Days. I've been thinking about Cranky Kong.
Look,
I'm Bowser pilled.
Look, I'll just read from Gavin's statement. I mean, this is what Gavin says again, which we don't personally agree with.
Hello, baby.
This is just what he said. Of course, he was like, "Hello, baby." That's how he opened the statement, of course, which I feel is inappropriate, but nevertheless. He told us that he had a consensual workplace affair with the ghost of Big Bopper and lost focus. And,
never should have happened.
Never should have happened. Gavin is, of course, he's gone effectively, immediately. And you will never hear from Gavin 490 Freak on this podcast
we're gonna be retroactively editing Gavin out of every podcast we've ever done. It's just going to be long gaps of silence when someone's talking about Entourage or Jackass riffs. Yeah, that's right.
It's a fucking
Smooth Gavin will never appear on the Indieheads podcast again.
We are replacing Gavin with Smooth Gavin.
We're unveiling a new character, funnier than anyone we've ever had before.
We're replacing Gavin with Henry Cavill's mustache.
Shh. Okay, let's.
If only we had someone with Gavin's exact DNA match, we could do the Avatar technology replace his body.
But we do.
That's the plot of Avatar.
There are two Wilkses.
Okay, we all right, that's it. That's all we gotta say. Let's get into the pod.
I love this one.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Indieheads Podcast, episode number 202. Of course, I'm here, your pal, Matty, here with Jackie, Rose, and AJ Moser. We are here because it is, of course, quarter 3 has ended. Quarter 3 for music, and here we are 3 months later doing a little roundup, little catch up on our favorite and maybe not so favorite albums of the quarter. This has been, at least I'll just say personally speaking, not been a crazy quarter for me. There's not been like a lot that has really grabbed me per se. A couple things, but nothing that like really grabbed me, at least not any full lengths that really grabbed me. Not too many on my end. But again, I am in an office job, 3 days out of the week. I don't really get a chance to play, the music that I want to play. But
you can just
we
go
got
ahead
some
and say
we got
I
some
hog
freaks.
the aux cord in the office. You can just say
Actually,
that.
no, it's not you. It's Luke. It's Luke.
Well, yeah, because
who hogs the aux cord.
when I'm playing stuff, it's usually like new releases that other people in the office are interested in hearing, and Luke gets like a 5-hour power pop playlist. But nonetheless,
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, Luke was playing like
That
CVS
sounds like
bangers
my
the other
personal
day.
hell.
Yeah. Anyways, we're here. We're talking about some records that came out in the past 3 months. And we're just gonna we got a lot to discuss, so we're just gonna try to get into it.
I was about to
as
say this has
quickly
been a
as we
really
can.
good quarter for music, but right before I logged on to this podcast, I saw that Kanye West is going on Tucker Carlson tonight,
Yeah.
and perhaps music isn't good,
I think we've had enough.
Maybe Gavin was right. We should just shut this shit down,
Maybe.
But nonetheless, we're going to talk about some albums because this was a good quarter for releases. I am
that's good stuff here.
I'm notorious for being like, hey, this has been a good year for music pretty much no matter what because I just like stuff. But I also think that this has been a particularly stacked year, and I think this year's been better than the last two. And
I feel
this
like
quarter has where it's really come to roost.
Still not.
I feel like Q3 is one of the stranger ones of the calendar year. It's some weird months because it's the end of the summer and then like the start of the fall proper.
Yeah.
So there's stuff I was thinking of where I was like, no, I guess that was June or May technically, and then there's stuff that's come out
there
or
were
coming
some
out in
July
October.
1st albums that I had already heard when we recorded our Q2 cast and like wanted to talk about during the Q2 cast, but like couldn't because they were Q3 albums technically, and so now we're talking
That's right.
about them now, including
We've done a Tenet.
The second album we're going to talk about today, but we can get into that.
Yeah,
in a second.
like I feel like Q3 is always the weird one because like everybody's like too busy in festival season. There's so few marquee releases, generally speaking, until like September, and then everyone's like, "Well, this season is approaching, guys. You better get those in the inbox before it's too late."
It's a real
speaking.
Much like these episodes, it's a real John Mulaney birthday sign sort of situation.
I mean, really, it is like half of the albums we're talking about this week are like from September 30th.
I think, and this is something I'm going to encourage with my clients I do publicity with next year. People would be so well served by dropping albums during the periods of time where people, quote unquote, aren't dropping albums, and also dropping albums on days of the week that aren't Friday, because it just feels like there will be weeks where there's nothing interesting coming out, and then there will be a Friday where there are 11 major and mid indie releases, and you're just like, what the fuck?
Bring back New Music Tuesday.
We're
bringing it back, folks.
I'm a big fan of the Wednesday album.
The Wednesday album drop. And we're not talking about Asheville, North Carolina, folks.
No, I mean, like, I think it was
I'm there tomorrow.
The Ethel Cain album came out on a Thursday. It came out Wednesday night.
All right, hold on. Put Jackie in a cage, quick. The first Ethel Cain drop.
Okay, all right.
Shut it down.
Actually, you know what? We would have hit that milestone in literally 30 seconds because we're about to talk about Pool Kids, baby.
Yeah, there we go. Pool Kids, self-titled. A very early highlight of Q3, I think for a number of us. It's the first one that I thought of.
Are we all on Pool Kids Hive in this chat?
Oh yeah.
I would say mostly.
I should say
recent conversion. Yeah.
I should say I listened to this band back when their previous album, I believe it's called "Songs to Have Safe Sex To." Is that the correct title of the previous album?
That is the
title.
Okay,
yeah,
I
listened to that last album when it came out because like I tend to sit in a lot of trash emo circles, and I hear people jazz stuff up, and I'm like, oh, like let's see what the deal with this is, and it's fine. Like it is like that last album is like the most like. This will get top 5 on the alternatives end of the year list core. And nobody.
It is. I think the first album is like late 2010s emo revival, like to a fault.
Yeah, this band is fifth wave, but like they're super like indebted to like a lot of the same stuff as like revival guys, and that's not a bad thing. It's just like I don't feel like they were able to properly separate themselves from their influences for a while. And then this album, like
totally,
this is the one where I feel like like we always talk about the level up, and this one is very much the level up. Like From the
Crazy
very
level
first
up.
single, it was like, oh, okay, they're cooking with gas. They're cooking.
Yeah, each one of the singles was a real Vince McMahon reaction.
It's
thing
like it's the two first songs on the album or the singles, right?
the two first songs, and then Arm's Length is the third single.
Yeah, I
What
mean,
were they
this
cooking?
album opens very strongly, is what I'll say. I listened to it like for the first time this week because, yeah, that first record was very hyped up in the emo circles, and I thought it was pretty good. I think I called this out too, where it's like we've, R.I.P. to the God's retirement party, but this Pool Kids record is really just kind of feels like it's picking up right where they left off with
It's
very
retirement party Paramore, which is the comparison that everyone makes because the first album, I believe the song $5 Subtweet, was the thing that got Pool Kids the official Hayley Williams cosign. And
look, we're all trying to get that.
Yeah, literally. Oh, yeah, exactly. But like, Pool Kids, this album feels like, oh, this is the payoff of getting the Hayley Williams cosign. This is earning the Hayley Williams cosign.
Yeah, I mean the production. So the first two tracks, the singles are really great, very like funny, bright, sort of whatever you want to call it, indie pop songs. But then the production on stuff like Swallow and Arm's Length, I know we were talking about specifically, gets like really sort of radical for what a band like this typically does. Like the fucking, when they bust out the robot voice on Swallow, that's the moment where I was like, yup, this thing is like a heater for me personally. And
like
maybe it's
saying,
a little long, but it's tight.
Like I was saying earlier, I think that's the dividing line between, like revival sound and fifth wave, and I think they have fully stepped into fifth wave for better or worse, because they're like, this is a band that is like finally making choices, like capital C choices. The ideas dial is in the hot position, as we love to so often quote here.
They're cranking.
I also think that one of the big differences for me with this album and the last album, and the thing I think this album does really, really well, is that like the last album, in the album title and like the song titles, there's a lot of like what older music critics would call like of this current generation, like observations or whatever. And I feel like on the first album, those feel like they're kind of nail on the head in a way that can make you cringe if you're not into that sort of thing. But I think Arm's Length, which is the best song on the album and the best song they've made, I think manages to do that in a way that isn't dorky or cringy. Like particularly the "I'm in the group chat with 21 goddamn people" line is really funny, and makes me think about the Discord every single time I hear it.
Yeah, if you say genuinely funny stuff over tiny moving parts-esque guitar riffs, I'm gonna like your album, and that's what's going on here. So it's a W.
I mean, anything so we can
Insane.
make sure people never listen to tiny moving parts again. I feel like that would be good.
Exactly.
I will say, this is a good record. I like this record quite a bit. It's a good 12-song album. It would be a great 10-song record. I was re-listening today. I was re-listening today, and I was like it's good. Like it just drags the tiniest bit too long by the end. Like the last two tracks are great. Like Arm's Length is maybe the best song on the record.
What you cut is Comes in Waves and maybe Talk Too Much. Also, I like Talk Too Much more, but it's that middle section, like right in between Further and Swallow.
I hope you're right. It's another highlight for me.
I hope you're right. It's a good song. I wasn't meaning to get down on that one.
Oh no, I'm saying you got to keep it. Yeah, I think those two
down that section, because like what you're saying, Matty, is like they stick the landing really hard, but there are just a couple of kind of, it gets a little samey in the middle. But when you start that strong and then you finish it that strong, I'm like, all right,
it's hard to complain too much.
Exactly.
But it's definitely a case where it's like I do wish it's a case where it's like this is a good record.
It's a huge step in the right direction, which is the most important.
Exactly.
They're on a cool tour right now with Origami Angel and Insignificant Other. That is a cool tour.
It's gonna smell crazy.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. I really want to go to the
They're breaking fucking guitars in there. They're gonna be just falling apart.
But also, as I was hinting at, shout out to Caden, who plays drums in Ethel Cain. I don't know how much more he's going to be playing drums in Ethel Cain, because he's going to be touring with Pool Kids a whole lot going forward. But Caden is an absolute sweetie. Shout out.
There we go. Alrighty. Let's move on to our next record. This is a Jackie Core favorite. I think I can safely say.
Oh, absolutely.
The new Momma album, Household Name. I'll let you
It's
take it
fully
away.
in my 10. It's toward the bottom of my 10, and my 10 is very nebulous because there are, like, I have a really solid top, like, 4, and then, like, 5 to 25 is kind of in flux. But currently, I think Mama's in the 10. I went back to it this week because, like I said, this was a July 1st album, but this album has been chugging along real well. There was a week in the office where I was not allowed to enjoy this album because it knocked Soccer Mommy off #1 at college radio for a brief moment, but this album fucking rules. I from the moment I heard it, and I actually still have not heard their first album, which, like, I'm gonna get to that, like, literally tomorrow. Like, Cal 50 told me I need to check out the first record, and I'm gonna get around to it eventually. But I was not up on the singles for this. I was not tuned into the Momma hype machine until, like, right before the record, when people were talking about Speeding 72, and I was like, let me check this out. I read the Pitchfork review, I listened to the album, and from literally the first song, but especially the second song, I was like, oh, yep, yeah, that's just perfect rock music. Like, that's literally everything I want out of rock music, in it being catchy, anthemic, but also shoegazy at times. It just draws this perfect line between, like, of all the kind of 90s looking indie rock of our current moment, like, this feels so much more energetic than a lot of the more singer-songwritery, not to just compare it immediately to the Soccer Mommy album, which I thought was very good, but, like, I just think this record is really, really fucking solid. And like you were, and it really, I think it teeters off just a little toward the end. Like, I don't think the end is bad, but I just think all of the best songs are so clearly in the first 8 songs. But that's only, like, the end only feels like a drop off because they go 8 for 8 on the first 8 songs. Rip Off, Speeding 72, Medicine, Rockstar, Motorbike, Tall Home, which is like an Alex G song, and Rules, and then Lucky and Brave are maybe my 2 favorite songs on the whole record. Like, just absolute knockout after knockout after knockout, hook after hook after hook. Friend of the podcast and producer of Evocade, Matthew Tomasi, went to go see them live and told me that they had Freaky Friday final gig vibes, which is the best endorsement of a band you could possibly get. They're really sick. I really love how their vocals blend together and harmonize together. It just sounds really fucking good. And the riffs on this bad boy, whew, the riffs are really good. They're big and nice, and Lucky especially has just some of the sickest guitar textures I've heard this year.
Now I'm going to say something that might sound initially like it's being derogatory, but you have to remember who I am and what I'm saying. I had the exact same reaction to this as I did to the Wet Leg album, which was like, oh shit, like, I believe the hype. They're pretty good. They're doing that dang thing. They're really ripping this up. It's super fun. It's super peppy. It's got very good riffs, very impressive, instrumentation and guitar playing. It kind of rocks. I really, really dug this one. And like you said, that opening run of tracks is pretty much undeniable. Very good.
Yeah, and I also think that, like, even though this is very much me bait in the same exact way that the Horse Girl album is me bait, like, the Horse Girl album is just, like, music made by teenagers that is for Matador Records listeners.
Yeah, it's like, there's another album on the list. I'm forgetting which one it is exactly, but it's like they take sort of, a thing that's well understood in indie rock or like shoegaze space, and they just sort of do it, but they're like, you know what if the songwriting wasn't stuck in the 1990s? Like, what if we didn't do that, but we were like, what, it's 2022.
The difference between the Horse Girl album, which is really, really, really great, but they're just, like, earnest fans of that music in a really just, like, obvious way. Like, if you watch the What's in My Bag video with the 3 members of Horse Girl, first of all, you're like, these are children.
That's right.
These are 12-year-old children. And second of all, you're like, these 12-year-old children have listened to every fucking album on Numero Group and every fucking Sonic Youth album. And, like, it feels authentic to them, but I think that the Momma album feels like a band that is not only in touch with their influences and in command of their influences and able to stand apart from them, but also, like, kind of cheekily playing with the legacy of bands. Like the Pavement reference is obviously the first thing that jumps out, is the listening to Gold Sounds line on Speeding 72. And I think they also mention Smashing Pumpkins on the record, or I want to say,
I don't know if that's this one.
There's another band that they name drop on this record, but but like it feels very kind of purposeful in the way that it's positioning itself in regard to those things. And I think it is really, like you're saying, doing it in a way that feels both in conversation with that, but very distinct to 22, like Rip Off especially. And I think that the Pitchfork review nails this well, is the idea, like, what does a 90s rock album sound like? And more importantly, what is the songwriting like in an era that is so antithetical to the environment culturally? Of like, the word sellout now basically has zero meaning compared to what it meant in the 90s. And it's like, how do young people that are raised in an environment that's completely different than that, but they're listening to Pavement and they're listening to all the bands that came out of this very particular time and like how we thought about rock music. And like Rip Off is just such a fucking great song in the way that it is engaging with their place in rock stardom, and sort of like the album being called Household Name and all of that. It's like they are unabashedly aspiring toward rock stardom while also kind of having a tongue-in-cheek Pavement-y wink that is very 2022 and not just 90s revival-ish.
Yeah, because the thing about Pavement in the 90s, it's like the songs that they were writing and the stuff that they were doing was very funny and almost like spoofing stuff. Like, you know, they're spoofing like Velvet Underground and that early stuff. And it's like, you can't just do literal hero worship to that. You kind of have to understand what made that stuff good. Exactly. And I'm glad that we paired these first two together, because these are two records that like I think really understand what was great about, you know, like 90s indie, and capitalize on it in a really like fun, fresh way.
Exactly.
Speaking of, actually, I think this is a good segue into the next one, because I listened to this Mo Trooper. Salute the Mo Troopers. Mo Trooper. Holy shit, what a fun record this is. It's like fucking it's my initial thought when I listened to this is like, oh, this is like a Beatles record if they let Ringo write all the songs and do a silly voice.
Oh my god. Okay, I'm gonna make sure I clip that and send that to Luke.
I'm gonna text Luke that right now.
It's so fun. It's just like an incredible, really great time. Like the Simon and Garfunkel rip and all of that stuff. Just like, I like really, really dug this thing. It's, you know, more I'm not going to bang on my table, but like more albums that are just fun, good stuff.
Yeah. I will say for the sake of transparency, Mo Troper, his manager is mine and Jackie's friend Luke, who we've had on the show a number of times. But even aside from that transparency, the sound is really good.
The back of my head and the front of Maddie's head make the world's shortest cameo in the "I'm the King of Rock and Roll" music video.
Of course,
yes, we are friends of Mo, and we love Mo. But this is a very good record. I know it is because I had to listen to it like 100 times in the office before it came out. And if it had not been good, I would have been annoyed by that. But luckily, this album is really good. My favorite song in this record by far is Play Dumb. I really, really love that song. It gets to me emotionally. And I really like... I think a thing that Luke has talked about that I think is so true is the way that this album feels, kind of going back to what we were saying about the last one, feels very in conversation with music now, even though this record is both inspired by and made in the production techniques of music that is very old. Like, all this music was recorded onto 8-track, and then the guy who mastered some One O Tricks Point Never records, like, did the most insane mix mastering job I've ever heard, because he took these tapes that were like not separated and somehow managed. I don't know how he did it. Like, it is a true like magic trick how this record is produced. But like, there's all these kind of pitch shifting vocals that if you were being really dumb, you could be like, oh, this is hyper pop influence or whatever. But it's like, it's going back to like Guided by Voices tape deck experiment, goofing around stuff, but it's doing so in a way that inadvertently ends up feeling very much in conversation with stuff that's going on now.
It's like Daniel Johnson-y in a way. I don't know if that's one of his like literal influences, but I get it.
I feel like, I feel like he would probably, Mo would probably not be mad about that comparison or probably agree with it. But yeah, no, this is just a a great record. I'm not, weirdly enough, despite me growing up. I mean, I talk about this in our soft sounds piece, which is gonna be going up hopefully by the time this podcast is out on Patreon, but definitely by the time it's out everywhere else. Like growing up, I was without me really knowing it, I was a big power pop head growing up because I mean I grew up on like all the the late '90s power pop revival shit, like late '90s, early 2000s power pop revival stuff. And this record, while it doesn't sound like that, because that period I'm talking about is like super hi-fi, like very clean production. And this is obviously like very notably like lo-fi. It's a very lo-fi record. Like, and I think like Mo's like first two records are really good. I think like I re-listened or I listened to those for the first time pretty recently. And those are two, really good, like very down and dirty kind of like power poppy indie rock records. And then, the third one is more hi-fi, very much about being like, all right, like this is my Beatles record. Like I'm going to go all for it. And these last two, especially this one, is just like, I have a bunch of ideas for songs. I'm just going to throw them on the wall, see what sticks, and just kind of exploring, the creativity wherever it goes. And I think like that, you like I said, as AJ said, this is just a fun record. You can tell that like making this record was, I cannot say more. I can only just say based on interviews, Mo was going through a tough time while writing this record, but it does sound like he had a lot of fun recording it, and seems like he's having a lot of fun playing and all playing these songs at the very least. Like for a song that, for an album whose lyrics are pretty fucking sad at times, it's a very fun record. It's a breeze to get through. One of my favorites of the year. Again, it keeps it short, and I like that it's short. It's 15 songs, like just over a half an hour. Like it's in and out. It's great. As Jackie said, Play Dumb is a great track. I love the singles. Tub Rules is fucking, it's a silly little song about the rules of the tub. It's literally it. It's like a stupid little like like Robert Pollard ditty, but I also really like Royal Jelly. Royal Jelly is a great track. But really good record. Highly recommend. And then up next, unless we had any extra thoughts on MTV by Mo Troper, this
VH1 in stores soon.
He should call it. We gotta tell Luke that he should call the next record VH1. That'd be a very fun bit. But next record, Wooloo Loggerhead. Jackie, you introduced me to this one because you're like, hey, this kind of sounds like Dean Blunt, and that's immediate bait for me. I'm like, okay, I'm in. And I really liked this when it came out. I listened to it a couple times over. Like, wow, it's just like a really good kind of innovative, like sort of like experimental pop record. And then I went back and re-listened to it today. It just didn't really grab me as much on the re-listen this time around. I'm not really sure what it was.
I've cooled a little bit on it too. I think what the Pitchfork review kind of gripes with, which is similarly the thing that's dragged with me. Oh God, how often do I say that? Like, oh, I agree with what Pitchfork said. Whatever, I'm a chill.
Yo, does anyone else think this is the most trusted voice in music?
But
me and Jackie did write for Pitchfork, or did write for Pitchfork, so
it's true.
But I've not listened to this record, but it's one of the best album covers of the year. Is the only thing I will say. The cover
is incredible, but I think, Matty, what you're getting at, it's a really great album that has a ton of really great ideas. And so the first time I was going through it, I was just like so excited the whole time because I'm just like, wow, this is going in a lot of different interesting. And I tapped into the singles on this early because I was aware of Wooloo through doing some remixes and stuff like that. He was more of just a producer guy. And then he drops the first single from this and they announce he's signing to Warp. And I'm like, whoa, this is interesting. This is really different than anything I'd heard from him before. And so I was very tuned into all the singles, listened to each one, and then listened to the whole record to hear the songs I hadn't heard yet. And like all the songs I hadn't heard yet were really cool. And even though some of them were kind of like not what I was expecting, I was just sort of like, this has so many ideas. It's so interesting. And over time, I think the flow of the record is the thing that doesn't quite work. Like, all of the songs when taken individually, and that's part of how I was able to really enjoy it the first time, is that I had digested each one of those songs as like a standalone single. And then so during going through the album, I was just sort of like, oh, I don't, there's a kind of this weird like first stage of the album before they get to any of the singles that's kind of a little sleepier and slower. And then they run through a bunch of the singles with some other non-singles stretched in between, and then you get to the kind of road trip Broken Homes section at the end that I think is really strong. But I don't know. I think it's really good still. It's when I first heard it, I thought it had a real chance at like being top 10 of the year, being like this incredible like just achievement, because I love all these singles so much. Like South is probably the best single. That song is just so fucking, the South London refrain of it is just really great. And a lot of the guitar on this record, AJ, to sell you on it, a lot of the guitar in this record is done by former member of Black Midi. What's his name?
Matt?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. They toured with like Turnstile, right? Is that what I'm thinking of? Is that this band?
Ulu? No.
Okay.
This is a British...
they're British.
You're thinking of
he's
snail
a British,
mail.
like hip hop and electronic producer guy who like remixed a Leanne La Havas single a year or two ago and is signed to Warp Records. So he's it's a very like post genre. It's got a lot of really really cool influences, and
they're on that one Spotify playlist that's like genre impossible.
Oh, totally. But it's also in the post-punk playlist, and I will say that of anything that even remotely, and I think we've talked about this in the podcast, but even I at this point have an allergy to things being described as post-punk. There's just too much of it. It's a problem, but the great thing about this record is the way that it incorporates those guitar and bass riffs into this electronic grime hip-hop influenced record. Makes those things feel so refreshing again, as opposed to feeling like just another talky post-punk thing.
What's like, if you're selling someone on this record, what's the song?
I would listen to South. The thing I would recommend, go watch the music videos. Every single one of the music videos they did for these singles, the Warp Records money came through. Very, very, very cool music videos.
That Danny Lopes check hit.
It did indeed.
Yeah, that and Blame. I think Blame and Road Trip are two really great tracks.
It's one of those
Road
ones
Trip
where
is
like,
the one that goes full Black Midi mode. AJ, if you want to check that out.
Okay.
Every year there is like at least one album where like I pull the Haters Gambit and I'm like, I wanted to like it, but it has god awful sequencing.
Yeah, that's
like,
kind of what killed. That's what killed it for me.
And like the problem with it, and like the problem is like there's no way to properly sequence it. Like there's always an album like that where you're just like, I don't know how I could fix this. But like,
sequencing as it is pretty baked in.
I think the main thing I would do is just break up those first 3 tracks. I think Take Stage has to be the intro, but going right into Night Pill after Take Stage just has this effect of like slowing you down in such a way that then when it tries to pick up the energy later, it doesn't feel like a ramp up. It doesn't feel earned. So I think the way to do it would be to have the kind of intro track and then come in with like South as like the second track. Like you need something that's one of the more hard hitting aggressive tracks to hit earlier.
Yeah, I mean like that's why everyone, uses like song 2 on an album as like the single, of course. It's like the, it's
I think
this
like this record would be hard to sync with no matter what, but I think he tried to galaxy brain it a little too much.
Yeah, exactly. And like it's a record that like I like the songs, I like the songs. They're good songs, but like in album form, it's a mess. It's a mess.
Yeah, it didn't. Yeah, that's kind of what the re-listen was just like, because I was more taking it in as an album this time around rather than like, okay, like a group of songs. Yeah, there's again some great stuff here, tons of potential. Like,
it's a can't miss record, even though it is not the like album of the year candidate because there is just no one else who makes music like this. I haven't heard anything else like this.
What it is?
What?
The next one we're going to talk about, but finish thoughts.
With perfect sequencing.
We'll get there.
Yes, we can get to that next. I mean, I'm pretty much done with this record.
Yeah, good record. Definitely
sounds like an artist to watch more so than the record.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
but I mean, for it being his first like. He went from being just a kind of one-off singles, and he put out an album in like 2015, but like for this being a debut on Warp Records and to just land the plane. I mean, we just talked about the flaws with the record, but like it is genuinely inventive and pretty singular in the world right now. And so I do have to give it props for that.
Yeah.
Man, speaking of, what a great transition.
Let's move on.
Let me tell you, folks.
This is Rose time.
I like this band, a decent amount before. You know, I heard that last album, Welcome to Conceptual Beach. I heard that and I was like, there's something here. There's something here. I don't know what, but there's something here. I'd heard the one before that, I believe it was called The Whole Thing Is Just There. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Yes.
Didn't like that one much. I like this band has been the real like the real.
Have you gone
the real
back to that?
Yeah, I
Out of
came back to it. And I was like, okay, I get it now. Like I did literally like the day. So to tell you people's story, I got the advance for this album like the day after it got announced. I was like, oh, you know, I'll peep into that. I like that last record, Conceptual Beach. Put it on. I listened to it 6 times in a row that day.
It's like what I did when it came out. Yeah, it's being 27
Like-
minutes rocks.
6 times in a row that day. I did not like, and every time I just kept getting like more enamored with it. I was just like, oh my god! Like it was one of those. Like this is such a this record uses brevity to such a completely earned degree. It is a record that is like entirely like difficult to place if you like. Even like I feel like if you haven't approached this band before, you'd be like, I don't get why this is interesting. But like if you're somebody who's like even had them on for one album, you're like, oh my god, I can't believe they did this move.
No, totally.
So like young Jesus before this were like pretty standard like prog influenced emo band stuff. Like
hard to describe their old stuff as standard. I would say it was very like
well
Also-
I'm saying in the realm of like if you understand the palette they're working with, like you know instantly where they're going for.
yeah.
But
They were doing like emo by way of like a classical symphony, basically, of just being like, we're gonna do some wild compositions, and this
Prog.
dude is just gonna moan.
I'm telling you, it's prog.
Prog's like, you know, they're not as mathy as I think that would like imply.
I
don't
think
know.
Exactly.
Conceptual Beach gets
Yeah,
there,
so
I would
Conceptual
say.
Beach for sure. I've been
Yeah,
a truther since the self-titled days.
On Conceptual Beach, the one that really got me was Patterned Out. That song is like
But I think
that
what
is
both
such
of
a
you are
prog
getting
song.
at, though, is that this band has developed a reputation over the last 3 records of innovating and changing on their sound. And while the jumps between the self-titled and the whole thing, and then the whole thing to Conceptual Beach were each pretty distinct in their own, this is the most they've ever just completely left the shore.
Yeah,
And
because that's what I want to get to briefly.
Exactly. Go ahead. Go.
Mhm.
Yeah, so like previously their writing method was just like, you know, they had a full band, like it was John and full band, and they would, you know, rehearse and write for weeks on end until it was like this tightly knotted thing that, you know, they like fully developed. And then this one, there's nobody else, it's just John, and just he was like building out these demo sketches on his own, you know, just completely improvising it and like taking these things and like, this is the point I want to get to. This is truly the first album that I have heard in a while that I would describe as quote unquote post bolt cutters, because it reminds me of that album's approach of like, you know, taking everything, including the scraps, and like incorporating it into the finished product in a way. Like, because he's talked a lot about like putting in voice memos that he just recorded of like, you know, like loose vocals he'd found of just like some woman singing, or just like, you know, him just tapping away on the piano, like kind of just trying to find a little melody, you know, like if you listen really closely to each song, you can kind of hear the places where like, this is like, oh, this was like a half idea that became enmeshed into the full thing. And like, that's part of why I love it, is just, it feels like an assemblage of something like very genuine, very, very, very authentic.
Yeah, they always had a, you know, kind of singular sound, and I think part of that is John's voice being so distinct, but also like the very dramatic instrumentation that they would have in their songs. Like I'm thinking of stuff like, what's the 20-minute one, Golf, off of The Whole Thing Is Just There, which is like this song that just like literally crashes like waves over you. Like it's just sort of the same thing, kind of like hitting and
the
hitting
one that's
and
called,
hitting.
like Satanism versus
Yeah,
That's the best
Satanism
song.
versus Buddhism. That's on the or that's on Conceptual Beach. I love
No,
that's
Sadism's
the whole thing is
also
just there.
on the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Those are both on the same record.
Yeah, Faith, Patterned Out, Unknowing off of Conceptual Beach. They had a style and they were refining it from album to album. And then this one is a total curveball and is one of the rare albums that I listen to and I'm like, yeah, you know what? There's kind of nothing else that sounds like this out there. This is an album that like very distinctly has its own sound. And yet,
I disagree a little, but like for this band, there is nothing in their catalog that sets precedent for this. Truly, like and like especially the way it kind of guides you into it, I think is so ingenious. Like the opening two sequences are like the most. The opening two songs in the sequence are like the most they felt like like previous stuff. Like the opener Rose Eater is like that feels like Patterned Out 2 to me. Is like that song, like in a way, like it's working with like sequenced beat stuff, but like you're still like, oh, this is kind of in the vein of like previous stuff. And then like Ocean, which is a
Ocean's the only one that could have fit on any of their other records, I think.
Oh,
like,
yeah, 100%.
Because the rest is just, I don't even know. Like,
all right, guys, we are 40 minutes into this episode. I'm just realizing now we're doing it again. We got to keep moving.
I mean, it rocks. It's so good.
I gotta keep again.
Rose,
it just
finish your thoughts, Rose, because I don't have
listen. Okay. Just listen to the first 3 songs on this album in sequence, and you will know if it's your thing. By the time you will hear a part on the song Jono, you will know then if you are ready to engage with the rest of this. If you like it there, you will know.
Exactly.
Yeah, I will speak on the more. I won't say. I'll say skeptical. I won't say critical. I'll say skeptical. This should be my fucking thing. Like this, there are multiple elements of this record.
It reminds me
of
like that Strange Ranger album you love.
Exactly. Like there's so many things in this record that are like that seem like that are total Mattycore. It's like here is this like kind of vaguely emo indie rock band that is kind of going a more electronic route, and that should be my thing. But I just don't think it fully. I think because of the limitations that he presented that were presented to him, I don't think he goes as sicko mode with it as like Strange Ranger did or Pendant did, where those 2 records, especially the Pendant record, were 2 records where like basically they don't have the tools. They didn't have a band. They didn't have their guitars. They just didn't have what they usually have when they record a record. So they're like, okay, but I've always been interested in insert this genre. In the case of Pendant and to a smaller extent Strange Ranger, hey, we've always been really interested in electronic music. I really want to explore this genre and really kind of take have my own take on it. And those two records, Isaac in Strange Ranger, and then Chris in Pendant, they really were like, okay, I'm going to study this. I'm really going to like take my time to really learn this stuff and kind of make a very like genuine, authentic record. This is definitely not like Young Jesus Goes like EDM, but it's definitely him introducing more electronic elements, and I think like that should be appealing to me, but I don't think it fully commits to like what I generally like would want out of like, oh, Young Jesus Goes electronic. Like it still very much feels like Young
thing.
Jesus.
I think the thing you're forgetting is like those other 2 that you're saying. Those dudes are being freaky little guys,
Exactly.
Mostly.
This is not a freaky little guy record.
This is more just like dudes doing house music, like spiritual house music influenced by like the Blue Nile.
I mean,
it's very very new age, very like new agey compared.
Yeah, exactly. If you ever listen to Hats, this is the album for you because Hats.
I will say I checked out Hats after Rose told me to listen to it after listening to this record, and I really like this record. I'm kind of in between Rose and Matty on it, where I'm definitely more positive on it, but also
it's good. I like this record.
A vein in my face started twitching when you called it the first post Bolt Cutters record, because
I didn't say the first. I don't think. But
well, I was going to say the person who made the Bolt Cutters of 2022 is on this album twice, and her name is fucking Beth Tomberlin. Sarah Beth Tomberlin.
That's right. You get the Sarah Beth.
You get the Sarah Beth. I'm not a true believer in that one. I like it, but I'm not like.
We're just flip flopped on that. We're like, I love this record. I think it's very very solid. I think that the pivots it makes fully toward house music are not just like, it doesn't feel like a tacked on thing. It feels very inspired. It feels very part of the whole piece. I just didn't think the songwriting really connect for me as much, and I think I agree with you that I like the brevity of this record, but I don't know. I just didn't connect with it lyrically at all, which is something that I very much did connect with in this band. Like Satanism versus Buddhism is a song that I think about all the time lyrically.
Yeah, they write songs that make you like grab your chest and wither away, and it hits different for everyone, but like that's what this band kind of does.
I suppose that's just because I was like having a genuine like crisis mentally speaking a few months ago because of another record that I listened to on this list, which we will get to
that's
soon.
Fair. We can get to it.
Yeah, we can get to one that was in a similar vein first.
This is in my top 10 very easily. Is the last thing I'll say on it. And another one that is in my top 10.
New Black Midi, baby.
The new Black Midi.
They're back,
Folks. They're good at writing songs. I don't know what to
The,
tell
the
you.
I don't
thing
have.
is,
Yeah,
I
will.
feel like the other two, the people who used to be really positive on these guys, like the biggest advocates, like it's flipped now. I'm like,
Oh yeah, no. That,
before
I was just about
like,
to say.
yeah, these guys are all right, but now I'm like,
Yeah, I was just about to say this is the one that seems like it's really getting some of the people that were a little more Black Midi skeptical, and this is the one where I'm like, okay, they lost me.
They literally can't miss IMO. They just
AJ is just here to have a good time, and I'm like, I just want more Schlagenheims. I guess
my favorite is still Cavalcade, but I truly love that these guys have become like the most demented prog band we have. Like they're just like
exactly
off
why
in
I'm
their
out.
own little world. Like they've literally started diving into like writing their own mythology.
Yeah,
of,
well, so
shared characters and universes.
The pairing of this one with Cavalcade is pretty interesting because Cavalcade came out last year and they couldn't tour for a while, so they were playing like on what was ostensibly the Cavalcade tour. They were mostly playing this entire album, and like if you like this album, or even if you don't but have ever liked Black Midi, like go watch some of the early performances of some of the songs that are on this record, like the title track, Eat Men Eat, Welcome to Hell. All that stuff, because the way these things have like evolved and the way that the band has played them live, like if you think Welcome to Hell is fast on the record, they play it at like 4 times that speed live, and Gordy Greep is just like quite literally screeching, and I think they're one of the best live bands that we have right now. I think they're one of the most important bands of the 21st century. I think they're sort of like charting rock music's into the next stratosphere.
Well, yeah, I think this is a discussion we've had before, but like we've talked about like the idea of like a decade's defining bands. I think like these guys came forward first in 2019, but I think they are one of the first like truly 2020s bands that we can discuss.
I would agree.
Like,
I would agree.
Like they have established themselves,
especially in the way they've kind of led the charge of like the dozen post-punk bands that have come behind them.
If you call Black Midi post-punk, I'm smacking you in the face, and
well,
I mean that. I know you respect them, Rose. I'm not saying. I'm saying this to all the listeners.
For the most part, I know I just talked about. I think everyone is 100% right. The post-punk thing has gone too far. There's just a avalanche of oversaturation of mid and bands that just sound kind of vaguely like other bands. That being said, I wish Black Midi were making post-punk because I don't like this prog shit. I haven't listened to this new album, I will admit. I am literally speaking as someone who has not listened to it, but it is so fucking weird that I haven't listened to this record because Schlagenheim is one of my favorite rock albums of the last 5 to 10 years. I think it's a masterpiece. And I didn't even dislike Cavalcade. I liked it a lot at the time, but just I could see where they were going. I could see what was more fascinating to them. And Rose, while you were like, yes, they're becoming a sicko carnival prog band, I've learned to soften my stance on prog just like the tiniest bit, but prog needs to be a flavor on the dish for me rather than the whole thing. Like if your whole thing is that we're going to be proggy and that's first and foremost like what we're about, I don't know. I just don't fucking like. I literally have not listened to Cavalcade since last year.
As someone who's bought into the whole thing, like for me personally, them doing the freak shit, I love. What I will say, I think there's a record stronger than both Cavalcade and Hellfire, where they took a little bit more time, kind of picked the best songs, the best bits that they have, and like, combined that thematic structure. Maybe it's a double LP or maybe it's longer or something. I don't mind that we got Cavalcade and Hellfire sort of separately, but I think like to what Jackie was just saying, there's like a much more refined kind of like gone through these both feel sort of just like fuck it, Black Midi albums, like go, we're just doing it.
I think the one weakness of this one, I still like Cavalcade better because like it plays more to my taste, where like it's sicko stuff, but it's still a little, it's not afraid to get austere in a way that's like really feels really genuine. With like one of my favorite King Crimson songs, like to reference to, is Lament, which is like this song that is built up in 2 parts, where like they have a part that's like just the freak stuff, but then it starts you with like this just genuinely sincerely beautiful guitar and violin bit that you're just like, oh, they can play it beautiful. And like that's what I like about Cavalcade a lot is, it feels like they have those moments of genuineness like in there, but like this album, like still like for every moment that it's like trying to do something sincere, it feels like at the same time it's kind of doing it with a wink where you're like, are you guys really playing this seriously, or are you just like kind of just throwing it into hell because you can? And like I think the worst moments on this record are the sincere ones, more specifically both of the Matt songs on this one.
I think Eat Man Eat
not
is
Matt, Cameron. Jesus Christ, we were talking about Matt.
I think Eat Man Eat
Cameron.
is maybe their best song ever.
I
love
don't like that
song
one very much. It's gotten worse.
That's one of the few highlights on the record for me.
And it is. I just want to be on the record. It is because of the slur. I like that he says the slur on it.
my favorite one is 27 questions, because that is just like straight up them just trying to be as funny as possible, and it works. Like literally, he's just like he's just listing off questions, 27 questions, and then
he doesn't even do 27 of them.
Quite 27, but thank you for listening.
To close the loop on this one. Yes. Sorry, Jackie, go ahead.
I was going to close the loop. I was just going to say that as we're talking about sort of the way that these bands are diverging from sort of straightforward post-punk, of the sort of three primary bands that have come to define this wave,
I don't want it.
They've all branched off into their own genre influences that are not post-punk. Black Midi are trying to be King Crimson, Squid are trying to be Radiohead / Can, and Black Country New Road are trying to be Andrew Jackson Jihad.
Come on now.
Don't do this to AJJ.
Don't make me passionately defend the most critically acclaimed album of the year on this podcast again.
I'm just saying it was a
don't
no-brainer.
Make me defend AJJ again.
It was a no-brainer for me on how to consolidate my post-punk stocks. I put every dollar of it into Squid, and the rest of them are just not for me anymore, and that's fine.
My closing statement on Hellfire was going to be, it's very obvious that these two records from Black Midi were sort of developed in the same headspace at the same time. And now they're kind of out of material that they've been touring or tooling around with. And so I think whatever we get next from them, whenever it comes, is going to be like the total sort of evolution moment for them. And I'm really curious to see where they go, because they clearly had their fixations on both of these records. And I really do think it's important to sort of pair those two together, because they do feel like Nightman, Dayman sort of albums. But
yes,
I'm very, very curious and excited to see what they do next, because
I think they're going to be one of those bands that like you're gonna, even if you're not like into them anymore, you're still going to keep watching, because like they're going to keep making moves that like feel very genuinely like pivots.
Yeah, don't go King Giz and put out 4 records in a year, but like
they never would do that.
Crank them out.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I will say my final thoughts is that they've kind of lost the plot for me. But again, it's not the case where it's like Black Country New Road, where I'm like, I am like this record is so bad where I'm like completely disinterested. This is a case where it's like, this record's not gonna grab me, but hey, they might have another one where it's like, hey, they could very easily win me back.
Okay, this next record is mostly me, but I'll keep it brief. New Callous Daoboys, Celebrity Therapist.
Woo!
By the way, this band name sucks. I just need to put that on the record. I can't
disagree more, but I'm also a Dallas Cowboys fan. So
so this band, really good mathcore. I know everyone's just dying to hear my thoughts on some mathcore, but
I love this shit. This is so good.
Yeah, this is like really good. I feel like everyone just hears mathcore and they go like, "Oh, Dillinger Escape Plan," blah, blah,
Primus.
blah. But like, I don't know. This feels like a very genuine modern step forward in a way, because like this one feels like mathcore. I feel like the problem with it is people are too afraid to get goofy. Like they take it so seriously, even though this is an inherently ridiculous genre on its face, and like it works so well here because they're just playing it up like it's like the hat on a hat thing, but like you're just stacking hats until it's like going up to the ceiling, and it looks so silly, and you're just like having so much fun with it. Like, and there's just moments on there like when they just like when it feels like they're just toppling over onto themselves, like on that one song I'm forgetting the title of, where they're just like they suddenly break into this insane melodic chorus where they're like, "There is no answer." Over and over.
the whole album. I really fucking love this record. Actually, this is one of the like Jackie checks into metal exactly 4 times a year when something clicks for her albums. I would say the best way to sell it to people, if you're not like me and you're not someone that hears mathcore and goes like, "Ooh, I need to listen to that." the thing I keep comparing this record to is System of a Down, because I think it's exactly what you're saying, Rose. It's the goofy theatricality that's being juxtaposed with like these like pummeling sonic like the riffs and stuff like that. And I think that this record, it perfectly strikes that balance of being so ambitious while also not being self-serious. I mean, like, you pull up the page for this band and you look at the like 8 people that are in this band, and like there's a violinist on stage.
Yeah, there's 8 people with like a cello player.
Whenever you see a band picture like that, you're either about to hear the worst album of the year or the best album of the year. There's just no in between. You know what I mean?
You know, it's an audio format, but people at home won't see my ears literally perking up when Jackie was like, "There's 8 people on stage." There's no way to get me invested in a band quicker of being like, they've just got someone standing in the corner for one
AJ,
song.
I've got these guys. They've got like 8 people in the band. Yeah. They put out a lot of material. They're from Australia. You might have heard of them.
Come on now. Well, like, so this album cover, I like it, but it doesn't tell me anything about what this band sounds like. And this is one I just have not had the time to get to yet. But it's like, they've got the goofy name. They've got the cool album cover. I'm like, is this a Brockhampton thing? Is this a like metalcore thing? What are we doing here? But
Brockhampton can never have an album cover this cool. I'm sorry. Even as a former Brockhampton
honestly, and like
fan.
They will never title a song "What Is Delicious Who Swarm."
I want to check it out. You guys have sold me on it.
This has many of the best song titles of the year. My personal favorite is "Beautiful Dude Missile." That's just a great song.
Yeah, that one is easily my favorite.
See, as a feminist, I call it a beautiful women missile, personally.
Field Sobriety Practice, also a great song and song title. But let's move on. Jockstrap. I Love You, Jennifer B. I can talk about this as well as Matty. I really like this record a lot as someone who really did not like the EP, but I will agree with the kind of criticism of this record, which is that the Wicked City EP feels like a very 2020s kind of post whatever you want to describe, like just throw in a bunch of ideas at the wall, gremlin music, not in the post-punk variety, but gremlin music of just like, I'm gonna do a bunch of insane, loud, obnoxious shit. And then I heard Glasgow as a single in the office for the first time, and I think 3 different times during me hearing Glasgow for the first time, I was like, wait, this is Jockstrap? Like that Jockstrap? Like, I was just so taken aback by the idea that this was the same band.
Oh, this is someone from Black Country New Road?
Yeah, it's
Georgia. I did not realize
the
that.
violinist.
Yeah.
So this is as the review of this states, like, this is some of the most music school ass music you've ever heard in your life. Yeah. But I think mostly I mean that in a positive way. Because I think that this record does the kind of Baroque pop thing that it's going for really, really, really well. And it just dials back the kind of craziness a little too much, even as someone who didn't like that EP at all. Like, at first I was like, oh, thank God they stopped doing the dumb bits. But then after spending some time with the record, I was like, this record could use just a little more zaniness.
And this is where I come in. Oh, this band, I heard that EP and I was like, there's something there. I think these guys could make a really good one. And I didn't realize at the time. I didn't realize until after I'd heard the record, like, oh, one of these people is in Black Country New Road, and suddenly I understood part of why I hated this.
I will say,
it like, this is like, they were being sickos on that EP, City Hell. Like that EP was interesting to me.
See, yeah, that's the thing, is that like that EP, again, I'm in Jackie's boat where it's just like, I heard that EP, I'm like, there's some interesting ideas on here.
And
but where are the songs? Where are the songs?
No.
This record fixes that, where it's like, oh, hey, here's the songs. I get Jackie's criticism of like, yeah, it could be a little more zany, it could be more weird, but like, for me, I'll take the fact that there's songs on this record above, like, yeah, there could be some more zaniness, but like, I'm glad that the fucking songs are here finally. Like,
that's where I'm at too, is that even though I don't think this is like necessarily like, oh wow, this is like a really, really great like top of the year album, it's a huge step in the right direction, and I think they're going to calibrate it. I mean, Greatest Hits that song is so fucking good. Like, that song is outrageously
I
good.
bring my personal grievances, because like, not only was that EP like sicko stuff, I believe, I don't remember if it was the lead, but like, it was one of the first singles was 50-50, which is like, I believe it's the closer on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
that song is insane. I like that one so much, and like it brings 10 times more energy than like half the stuff on here. It's just like, where is this?
Which I don't mind that per se. I don't
see,
mind.
That's my problem. Is like I don't want this like
somewhat low
austere
energy
nonsense. I want like if you are going to be a sicko band, you should stick to being a sicko band.
I don't think that's what they're trying to be, though.
This seems to be a very conscious stuff of like, okay, like we are kind of playing with some stuff on these EPs. I mean, the last EP was on Warp. This is on Rough Trade. So it's like I think they very consciously want to make a much more like pop flavored record.
They're I think
it works.
And they're
kind of blending. They're blending. Man, I hate the sentence that's about to come out of my mouth. They're like blending hyper pop with post punk, and unfortunately for them, they picked the parts of both genres that I react negatively to. But they are doing something different. You know, I think like you can't call this record generic.
That's fair.
Oh, I'm not calling it generic.
Oh no, I'm just saying like I don't like this record, but I wouldn't be like, it's boring. It's generic. It doesn't try anything new. It tries a lot of things. It tries a lot of new things. There are things I just don't think it does any of them well.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I will say, look, for me, obviously, of course, I'm speaking as a big Dean Blunt fan, and this record does give me some Dean Blunt vibes at time with their approach to sort of classic genres of pop music, but sort of putting a different spin on it or putting some kind of deconstructionist energy to it. Definitely not as much as the EPs per se, but I think it's the right amount. Whereas like I feel like some of my issues with like the mid 2010s output of Dean Blunt is that I think he gets a little too deconstructionist with it. So when he kind of recenters things, like, all right, let me go, like, I'm gonna keep those elements, but I'm gonna really flavor things like, okay, like I need to put some more respect on these genres that I'm working in. I think it works.
We haven't even gone through all the main topic discussions. We're doing a lightning round. Jesus Christ, we got to keep going. But
I know I'm the one who wanted to rush it, but even then,
we can lightning around these next. I think we can.
A couple of these we can run. So yeah, Jockstrap for me. We're all divided. I think it's great. Give it a listen. That's my opinion. Next record, Madison Cunningham, Revealer. Keep this one brief. This is one that Jackie and I really like. This is just a really great singer-songwriter record. Like, just it's
this
it's
is
very
proof
much
that singer-songwriter albums don't have to be boring. You're allowed to shred on them. It's
exactly.
allowed.
Yeah, Madison is a killer guitar. We just saw her live. She's a fucking killer guitarist. But not one where it's like, she's doing a bunch of like effects pedals. It's just like she's just really damn good at playing. Like,
yeah, like straight up, I made this comparison a bunch of times, particularly to the opening track. It's downright Johnny Greenwood-esque. Some of the noodly stuff she's doing, it's really goddamn impressive.
I would say, it feels like it's somewhere in the triangle of like Radiohead, St. Vincent, and Big Thief. It's somewhere in that triangle for me. It's like, and I said this to Jackie somewhat as a joke, but I think it comes from a genuine place of just like, oh, this record's like all the things that I really like about Big Thief, but like in one record, which is not a totally fair, like, oh, it's not.
I will say, just for anyone, anyone who might listen to this that likes Big Thief, you should prepare yourself that it's not going to sound as rustic as Big Thief.
Exactly.
Matty is a hater.
Which is not what Matty goes for in music at all. But I think the thing that I really love about this record is that it does have a little bit, like, Madison Cunningham is friends with Sarah Bareilles, and it does have a tiny bit of that kind of like adult contemporary sheen on it. Like, this is a major label record, but it has so much life and personality and warmth and just like really great songwriting that those things don't ever, the slickness of it never drags down any of the parts that are supposed to really sing.
So is there like Americana folk flavor on it, or is it a little
occasionally? Not really.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Not really.
Is there
when Matty said the Big Thief thing, my eyes bulged out of my head.
We got any pedal steel on here?
AJ, the comp I would compare for the other comparison, especially for like songs like Sunshine Over the Counter, which is my favorite, the Katie Kirby album from last year.
Nice.
Yeah,
okay.
Is in a similar sort of lane, vocally too.
Yeah, if you are a fan of our friend and cast member Zach, this is one of Zach's favorites of the year. I was glad to choose this one.
If Katie Kirby was a St. Vincent-esque kind of virtuoso guitar player, is kind of how I would describe it.
Nice.
Also, she has a former history in worship music when she was a lot younger. So that there's that little tinge in there too of like coming from that background. But this is a great record. Really like it a lot.
Next one. Panda Bear was in his flop era. To quote a very famous quote, he was at his lowest, fat, nasty, and broke, career in shambles. He came on this bitch mad as hell.
He came on this bitch ready to have fun. This album rocks. It's very goofy.
Panda Bear and Sonic Boom. He finally came together with Sonic Boom, who's produced a couple of his records before this point, and like, oh my god, these dudes. They killed it. Like, this is the most I've enjoyed anything Panda Bear related.
Yeah, I mean, it feels. I know it's like a proper collab, but it really just feels like a Panda Bear solo album with like a producer that's not Noah on it. The songs are really fun.
The last one was produced by Rusty Santos, I believe.
Yeah, like it feels a lot less like a collaborative album, which it was sort of billed as, than it is like, you know, Person Pitch 2. It's not as good as Person Pitch 2 would imply, but it's very obvious he's back in that bag.
I've listened to like a couple of the Sonic Boom solo albums as well as Spaceman 3, and like I can really see where his influence comes in here, like especially on Everyday, which is one of my favorite songs of the year, favorite song on this record by a long shot. Like that is just like an insanely good psych pop song.
The first half of this album is very like unimpeachable.
I've
if
come
you're
around
into
to
that,
all of it. Like it's slowly crept up into my top 10 because it's just like one of those records that like I can put it on and I will instantly have a good time.
He's
like,
doing the white boy wiggle all over it.
Yeah, it is very much like it is a record to put your good time hat on too, I would say.
This will not, much like the other, well, not other, but much like the Animal Collective album from this year, it won't convert you if you're an Animal Collective hater. But if you were like, man, they have been out of their bag for a while, Time Skiffs and Reset are sort of two sides of the same coin, but it's just like those boys know how to cook.
Getting back to the fundamentals.
We got an AV Terror Soul record coming out later next year, I think. So
next year.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
nice. I mean,
Deacon
and
is, like,
another
working on
Animal
new
Collective
stuff as well.
album. Yeah.
I will just say that I've been tempted to try this record despite what AJ said because I like the solo Panda Bear stuff I've heard this year. I after hearing so many good things about it from people that I trust, I've managed to put my good time hat on and enjoy Step by Step by Breaks, Falcon, and Panda Bear. That song is great. I really like that song.
Yeah, I think he's great on every electronic.
I really like the Teebs feature because as I said before, when someone produces Panda Bear's voice normal and puts an actual beat under it, it sounds good.
I mean, Panda Bear on that Daft Punk record is a thing that's like, holy shit.
It's
can
set
just
the
do
example
that
for like a decade.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Every electronic guy heard that song and they're like, can we get this guy?
The fact that he can just do that only makes me more mad when I listen to Animal Collective. It only makes me a million times more upset.
You guys say Teebs, you guys say Braxton Fountain, you guys say Daft Punk, and the Teebs song is really good. I actually want to say it's a really great song. For me, I say Dean Blunt, which I still stand by the fact that Dean Blunt should have produced Boys. Like he should, if he wanted to go for a more minimal, like less reverby record, that's the guy you go to if you want like a more minimal. And obviously,
all the members of Animal Collective,
songs,
like 2017 to 2018, were smoking on that shit that was like, we got to save the ocean. Panda Bear made the Buoys record. They made Tangerine Reef. It was just like, y'all heard about the ocean.
I will say, Eucalyptus is a great record. That's a great record.
Eucalyptus rules. Like the thing is, like their solo work is very in and out. You're like, okay, this one's pretty great. This one, not so much.
There were like 5 years where the best Animal Collective adjacent album was what's the Deacon record called? Not Gold Sounds. Sleep Cycle. Yeah, but it was just like that was like, man, did they all fall off and Deacon's the only one who still got it? But the boys are back in town and we love to see it.
They're so back, and next year they're like, I think next year is going to be the one where like I'm fully ready to put it in the top 5 for the full year instead of like Time Skips where I was like half committed because like this next one I've heard the songs like a dozen times and they've got it. They're back.
Yeah,
and like that, and like the AV record next year, and the Deacon record whenever that's out, because like he's recording now apparently. It's like we're like fully in the main era. Oh yeah, and there's another Panda Bear record probably to come out soon because like he's got a whole other batch of songs that like weren't on this.
We're cooking.
We're cooking. Okay, on to the next thing.
Next one. This one's gonna be very.
I'll briefly get some words in on this since I know y'all talk about it. Cheem, Guilty Pleasure, really good. I like this. This is like a band that's very earnestly embracing some of the more silly and less taken seriously influences of like late 90s, early aughts music and putting it into emo in a very fun way. I think this is just a good time, like, again, we talk about songs to put your good time hat on to. Oh, this is it. Like,
Yes.
when I put my good time hat on and I listen to Pay to Play, I'm just like, this is the stuff, man. This is the stuff.
Me and Jackie will have a lot more to say on the next FYC episode that we're doing with we're finally having on the podcast. We've had him on streams before, but not on the podcast itself. Holiday Kirk, where we're going to be talking about this record on
CEO
episode
of
2.
New Metal himself has called us into his office, and
exactly,
and we have to discuss the new Cheem album. Shout out to Cheem. Shout out to all my Chuggalos out there. Moving on.
This next one, I don't have so much to say about the record itself, which is pretty good, as much as I do an important update. As of this year, I am ending my beef with the genre known as shoegaze. Okay, it's over. It's finally over. I'm getting shoegaze pilled, everyone.
I'm not gonna take 100% credit. I'm gonna take like 30% credit for this.
2023, my new angle is going to be, I'm getting into shoegaze, I'm getting into country. So if you have any shoegaze or country records you want to recommend me, hit me up.
Or shoegaze country, which is an essential genre.
2023, we're all in on the Wednesday album, baby. That's right. The future. That's the way.
But in case we didn't say it, the record we're talking about is Cold Gawd, which is spelled Gawd.
Did we skip right over the Cheem record?
Oh no, we just discussed it.
We're doing AJ. Yeah. We're doing a whole episode on that record.
Matty, will you do me a favor and for the segment where we talked about Cheem, where I was in the bathroom, will you just insert the audio from Lights Camera Jackson's Booksmart review?
Oh, God damn it, AJ. God damn it. All right, moving on. Actually, knowing that now, I'm glad we didn't let you talk about the record. Moving on.
That's why I went away.
Cold Gawd album, good. If you like shoegaze, go listen to that.
The album is called God Get Me the Fuck Out of Here, and it is very great because not only is it a non-white person making shoegaze, but he brings the trend of rap album skits that go on for way too long into the shoegaze.
I forgot about that.
Into the shoegaze genre. For the song "Comfort Thug," which is actually incredible. It makes me laugh every time, even though I have no idea what the point of it is. Still.
I just love that. Like the first time I heard it, was just like, what are we doing here? And then after like a minute, I was just like, oh, dude, this rules.
There's a song that starts with a like rap style like ad lib that comes right before just a shoegaze riff. He just goes, "It's Cold Gawd," and then it just drops right into the fucking riff like every time, and it gets a laugh out of me. He's awesome. He's like very, very full of himself, but in a way that's like endearing. Like all of his tweets are about like how this is the greatest album of all time and whatever, and he's just like, but he's really, really hot. If you look at the album cover, he looks like Ezra Miller, kind of like his facial bone structure is just crazy. Anyways,
MF put himself in Na'vi face paint for the album cover.
But they have the Deftones cosign because they are based out of San Diego and they are playing Dia de los Deftones.
Wow, I didn't know that.
They're like the smallest name on the lineup or whatever.
I know, but that's still sick.
No, it's a super cool cosign, exactly. And Deftones, they know what's up. This is not one of my favorite shoegaze records of the year, but like a very, very just rock solid, like good record.
This is another one
they
where
know how to put the parts together.
It's another one where I looked at the cover art and was like, man, this could sound like anything. So I haven't listened to it yet, but I was just like, this could literally sound like anything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, some very diamondized Deftones-y heavy shoegaze stuff. Good.
Yeah. Let's move on. Next album, Sudan Archives, Natural Brown Prom Queen. This is a very fun record. If you would like a lot of really great thoughts on the record, you should check out our cast member Natalie's Album of the Week feature on it on Stereo Gum, which, hey, we're making... This year, the Indieheads podcast, we're making money moves.
Not money moves, because music journalism pays not very much money. We're making clout moves, exactly.
We're taking over.
This is a great. This is a very fun record. Very long, but very fun record.
Absolutely, yeah. Just like stunner of a record. I liked the last Sudan Archives record, but it never really like grabbed me. And this record, from the moment I threw it, I listened to the singles, some of them, but from the moment I threw this on, I was like, oh yeah, this deserves every bit of hype it's getting.
Yeah.
It's in my top 10 of the year for sure. Easily, besides FKA Twigs, like best pop record of the year, I would say. I think it's just incredible. The flow of it is so good. It has so many great ideas. I like how horny it is. I think all the beats are really fantastic. There's a Jimmy Stack song on here. I believe Jimmy Stack produced Milk Me, actually. But there's a song about having the titties out. There's a song that has Chevy S10 is probably my favorite on the one. That's like the 6-minute long one that has the kind of house beat to it. OMG Brit is like a really great rap song. Like the way that she's able to just jump from genre to genre so effortlessly and also work in her violin playing throughout it. Like on the last record, it felt like the violin playing was not like her gimmick, but it was like, that's my whole thing, is I make these pop songs that are centered around me playing the violin. Whereas on this record, it really feels like just a tool that's in her arsenal. And she's like, no, I can do everything. I can be like a 5-tool talent. And I'm also going to weave my beautiful violin throughout it. Also, Freakalizer. That's the other best song on the record.
Yeah, what I'll say about this one is like not a personal favorite of mine, but I do think it's one of the there's always a rare handful of albums per year that are like, this is an essential listen, and this is one this year where I'm like, you like, regardless of what you like, you gotta listen to this thing, because it is pretty hard to sort of predict or chart where it goes next and what genre sensibilities it blends in. Like, it's a very just like impressive and really cool album.
And feels so much shorter than 18 songs in 50
For
minutes.
sure. Yeah. It's a great, like, capital A album.
Yes.
Well then, next record then, Chat Pile, God's Country. Rose, I think you've been banging the drum on this the hardest, probably.
Yeehaw, Jerry. Well, this record, woo. Let me tell you, I had a real existential crisis a few months ago, and this record probably didn't help with that. But really great stuff. Very, very, very good. If you like noise rock, if you like the label The Flenser, if you like slight nu metal influence, like that really nasty bass, if you like guys singing about like the most horrible atrocities a human can commit, you should go listen to this one, folks. It's real good. It's brutal, but whew, good stuff. Like hammers and grease, etc., etc. I don't know how to sell people on this one.
I will say, first of all, you should check out Rose's Merry-Go-Round magazine piece about this record and the Black Midi album, which is very good. But I think the way to sell people on this record, and we kind of talked about this with Chat Pile last week, I think, with Grant, is that some people might think that this is like a quote unquote gremlin core, like Black Midi type of thing.
You will see a song title on here that is
not.
It is.
You'll see a song title on here that is Grimace smoking weed.
But also, you might be intimidated by the fact that everyone sells this record as like just such a punishing listen, and it is. Like when I first heard "Why" as a single, I was like, "Oh, I'm excited for this record," but I'm also scared because that song, like, really shook me in the way it's supposed to, and I was just like, I don't know if I like. And like when I remember when this album came out, I like waited a couple of days because I was just like, do I want to make myself like miserable? Like, do I want to just subject myself to this? And the album is so much more listenable than I think that way of selling it would sort of imply to you. And I think it kind of does a disservice to it to make it just sound like this is like the most, even comparing it to the very canceled band Daughters or whatever. Like this record is much
I feel like
you know what I mean?
I feel like the way
it's
people
less,
talk about it,
abrasive, even though it is like thematically and sonically nasty.
I feel like people talk about it in the way of like this is the Sallow of records or something. Is like how people talk about it is just like, oh, this is a horrible thing. You don't want to get into it. And like there are parts of it where like you think about it for more than like 5 minutes and you're like, Jesus Christ, this is horrible. Like there's a song on here that's just like the lyrics are just like, like it feels almost free associated way of like describing a first person perspective of like a random shooting, just being in the middle of that and like how the feeling of that might be alluded to, but like just every bit of it is just like, oh, this is like the terror of it is real. Is the thing that I think gets me every time. Is like is a record that does not feel it. Like there's one song on here that maybe stretches into like kind of the fantastical, but like the rest of it just feels so bracingly real, and that's what I like about it. Is a record that like has that grit. It's a band from Oklahoma City, and Oklahoma, and you can tell.
It's true. We did this last week, but shout out to the members of Chat Pile, Stin, Captain Ron, Luther Manhole, things of that nature. Who am I forgetting?
Those aren't real guys.
Shout out to them for this noise rock playlist they made today, which is just like noise rock and noise rock adjacent songs, and includes an REM song.
That rocks.
God. Yeah, this one's not. It's not for me, but I'm very happy for the people that like this record. I'm not a metal person, so anything that's kind of adjacent in that the Fluns, again, the people that love the Flunser shit, I am so happy for you. It's just I'm not there yet.
It's a good year to be a Flynn's head, between this and wasn't there a midwife record this year, or was that last year?
No, there's
single
midlife record last year, one-off single.
Okay, yeah, I was misremembering that, but like between this and like Mama Leak and a couple others,
they're on an insane run right now.
Flynn's heads rise up, and like Jackie was saying, like, Jackie was saying, like, do I want to listen to this? Do I want to subject myself? Me being the neurotic person I am, I was like, I'm gonna slurp this up with a milkshake straw. Give me some more of that, just like nervous panic attack nonsense. Oh,
yeah.
Anyway,
it's fun when music can be scary.
In the opposite realm, here's a record that I made a post in the Discord that was like, hey guys, I'm listening to this now. 10 minutes later, I make a post that says, I have stopped listening to this record.
Yeah, I will say from an outside perspective, when I saw you're kind of putting out some initial hate for this record, I'm like, come on. Like, yeah, the first single, the singles aren't the best, but like it's, I feel like the record will come together. I'm kind of with you. I did not care for this one.
I can smell a dud sometimes. I can smell a dud.
I'm with. I said with my like I said, some of the more controversial Björk records, I'm with those. Like I think Volta's a really goddamn good, almost great record.
Volta is my favorite. I should say that right now.
Volta's good.
That's a wild take. I mean,
that's a wild take, but I respect
our friend Devin just did their rankings of Björk albums for Paste and literally put Volta last. So that is
which I disagree. It should be Biophilia. Biophilia is not that good. So like I've been with Björk for some of her more weirder out there records like Volta, Medulla. I liked Utopia a little more than most people. I think the record, it's got some really great stuff. It doesn't come together as well as Monica.
I like that one a lot.
I mean, at the very least, we are finally free of Arco. We can
true.
We can breathe easy now.
It's true. But yeah, this is Björk just kind of being like, all right, I'm into mushrooms now, and it's like, okay.
No, the other kind of mushrooms.
Yeah, just like nature. It's definitely a record that feels much more in the biophilia thing, where it's like, okay, I'm out. I'm sorry. I'm out.
I would just like to say that I have not listened to this record, particularly because of what I feel like is going on right now, which is just that Björk records have a lot of baggage and expectations on them. And whenever I feel like an album is getting like this discoursey, like out the gate, I put this album aside. I am going to listen to it in like 3 weeks when no one is talking about it. And then I feel
That's
like
fair.
I will be able to form an opinion on it that is not just reactionary.
I feel the only thing I've seen people say about this album is there's a new Björk album. It's probably pretty good, huh?
I have seen people. I mean, Devin in his base piece put it number 5, which is pretty high, and was very defensive of it and really likes it. So
yeah, let's just move on. This one's yours. I'll let you take away on this one, Jackie.
Oh, absolutely. Pop music is back. It's horny and good again. Awoo, wolf howl. New Shygirl album is out. This album, I have been very much looking forward to this for a while. I got into Shygirl, I think around the time most people did, which was, what was the name of that EP that had O on it? I think it was her very first EP, if I'm remembering correctly. But she's been on the kind of periphery of like Arca core sort of electronic people out there. Yes, it was the Cool Practice EP in 2018, which has O on it, which is one of my favorite Shygirl songs, and Nasty also is really great. And since then has been putting out just like solid single after solid single, put out a really great EP in 2020 called Alias, just kind of getting stronger and stronger each time. And this record, which is her first full-length album, I started getting really goddamn hyped for, because Firefly came out as the first single, and I was just like, holy shit, which is one of my Song of the Year candidates, my favorite song on the record, just like one of the best pop albums I've heard, pop songs I've heard in so long, in the way that it is able to blend in these kind of early 2000s rave influences and a very heavy dose of Imogen Heap influence, but in a way that does not feel reactionary to the current giant air quotes hyperpop movement. It feels like someone who is very conversant in the music that people like Sophie were pulling from, and is thus able to reconstruct her own kind of image of it. Like, Arca is on the second song on this record and delivers the best production she's given us in like 4 years. Like, I like Come For Me, which is the second song on the record, more than literally any song on all of the Kikis. And
wait. So can you rank the Kikis just in
no,
order? You know,
I can't.
Please refer to
don't.
them by title, as in Kiki or Kiki.
I will
Kiki.
just say that Kiki 5 makes Kiki 2 look like Kiki 3 or whatever. The blank check bit. But this record has one Arca beat, but mostly is handled by Sega Bodega, is the main kind of producer behind it. And he's someone that like I kind of initially wrote off as being in the sort of Arca adjacent camp. But I think he does a really, really, really great job on this record. I also really like the Sega Bodega album last year. I came around to it. But this record is just awesome. It's just, I think, one of the most fun. The only song I don't like on the album is Coochie, A Bedtime Story, because I think she just says, I don't like the word coochie, and B, I think she says it too many times in the song. Like, it's trying to be tongue-in-cheek, no pun intended, but it tips the boat all the way over, which I think the rest of the record is so good at being like bawdy and provocative in a way that is fun, and is not like trying to, I don't know, like I also don't think that song is very good. Like I think the hook of it is obnoxious. Not just because she says coochie.
Jackie, would you say, so on a scale of 1 to 10, how much would you say this redefined your perception of bodies and spaces?
Yes, everyone was making, me included, was making fun of the Pitchfork review today that falls for the bodies and spaces trap. The thing is you don't have to intellectualize horniness. Like, you don't have to turn it into like a socio-political statement. The song Schlut, which has an H in between the letters S and L, you can just appreciate that song as a fun song to listen to. That's it. I really love this record. Whoa, the intro track to it is like one of the best Imogen Heap ripoffs anyone has ever done. Probably the best anyone has ever done. And then it has a crazy beat switch in the second half that Imogen Heap would never have in a song of hers. And I think the way it's able to blend pop and rap and like post-hyperpop electronic stuff and rave influences all into one pot, that's some good shit. Love it very much.
Yeah.
You call me Nike, just do it. Hands on my body like you knew it.
Okay, I'll breeze through this next one. So I think these clowns did an episode of it like last week. I don't know. I don't listen to the show anymore. I'm too busy making this stupid project of mine that I've been working on. That I'm probably going to be working on for like another year because I'm an idiot who can't get things done. But anyway, Alex G, God Save the Animals. Oh, I finally listened to the rest of the Alex G discog this week. I'd listened to the last 2 records because like everybody would not shut up about those records for 5 minutes, and for a long time I was not an Alex G guy. But House of Sugar, I revisited it this year, and like I was like, oh, I think I've finally turned the corner on him, because like that album is such a sick blend of like standard like very folksy country leaning songwriter type stuff with like my kind of flavor of like sicko One Tricks Point Never electronics in a good way. Like there's even a song on there that I would describe as Animal Collective-esque.
Are you talking about Badman?
No, I'm talking about Near. That song.
Great song.
We literally talked last week about how I don't like that song. Anyways, moving on.
Yeah, but like anyway, yes. Going on, I came to this record and I was like, maybe this is the one. Maybe this is the one that like fully converts me to a head because I like House of Sugar a lot, and like I did not need this record to convert me to a head because I did that myself in the lead up to it. But like, oh, this one's good. This one's really good. I think this is like his most like cohesive work as a whole. Like I think he's always had trouble like defining his albums between like, you know, the bookends of like the standard, like this is what you get with an Alex G album, the like off kilter opener, the like pretty standard cool songs in the opening. Then he's like, oh guys, I'm taking a pivot. Whoa, and you know, you're like riding on a roller coaster back and forth, you know, like going from like style to style, and you're like, oh, this guy's going crazy. And then like he comes back and he's like, okay, we're settling down now, back to the folk songs, that's what you guys like, right? And it's like, it's always felt, you know, like even at its best, like I think House of Sugar is still my favorite, of course, but like even at its best, it has always felt like, you know, he is like punching you in the face with like, I'm going to make a hard left turn here and you're gonna ride along with me. But like this album, I feel like is the most he's ever blended himself together into like the standard and the creative whole in a way that makes sense and works really well for him, because I think like a lot of the ideas on here are really genuine and cool. Like there's a song here that does like No Bitterness does like this brief pivot into like this kind of like almost punky like pop, this punky hyper pop like auto tune with like insane guitars pivot. It only does it for like 10 seconds. You're like, oh my god, he could have made a whole song out of this. But like the fact that he didn't, and he shows restraint in that of like, you know, just limiting it to this little bit in a greater tune that like, you know, takes itself on its own journey. It's like so neat. Like every song here, even the ones I don't like, you know, like SDOS I don't like, but like there's still ideas on that, and I'm like, this is so cool. Like every minute it feels like, you know, the real accomplishment of like him being able to take the home studio ethic into a proper like studio setting in a way that like feels so earned. And like, of course, Runner, song of the year, let's just get that out of the way, you know, like
maybe the best Alex G song ever written, like no cap.
It's up there. I'm still a Southern Sky advocate because I really just like how that one feels like a cartoon band playing that one.
Oh, well, the thing is, it's on a bad album, so you know that's a bummer.
Not listening
Wrong.
to
it was hard for me, Rose. You joked about having not listened to the episode. You literally just made like all of the points that Max and I made, like literally like beat by beat. That was just like a 3-minute version of the 60-minute podcast. I'm prompt, and I know the brain here. I'm a prompt when I want to be, except I say like and a lot. You know, so it sounds less professional. But regardless, like very good record. I'm excited to continue with Alex G. I continue to believe it's the one.
I think it's not. I think it doesn't reach the highs of Rocket necessarily, but it's certainly his most consistent album. And
exactly,
like
that's the thing. It's consistency.
It's like, yeah, it's probably the best record he's made, and then you'll have your personal favorite. But I was like, you know, this is for me kind of like one of the pleasant surprises of the year, because I was a little bit kind of burnt out on the Alex G hype. And then the We're All Going to the World's Fair score was incredible. And I was like, right, that's what I like about Alex G. And then, gosh, Runner, Mission, Cross the Sea, all just incredible songs. This there's not a bad song on this album. Yeah. God Is My Lawyer, Jesus Is My Designer, etc., etc. Probably another one.
You got it completely mixed up.
Oh, I know. That's why I did it. That's why I did it that way.
Lawyer, God is my designer.
Probably in my top 10
Put the cocaine
as well.
in the vaccine, etc., etc., etc. You know. Like,
anyways, if you want to hear more, we did a whole episode about this last week.
I am going to see Alex G tomorrow, and I will probably spare my thoughts in the future because, like, I'm very excited to see what he does with this live.
More like Alex P. His own damn pants.
I've heard that he before he even put out the record, he was closing with Forgive Live, and apparently when he does Forgive Live, the solo at the end of the song that trails off, they jam it out for like 3 minutes. So
yeah, I'm so excited because I've been looking at those recent set lists and like, ooh, Ooh, there's some good stuff on
All
there.
right. Speaking of sickos, and having the ideas dial in the hot position.
Yeah.
We this is the new They Are Gutting a Body of Water country western split. It's called An Insult to the Sport, and this is when they finally did it. They finally figured out how to make shoegaze drum and bass music. Like they really,
it is insane. Like
really, like they had an EP that came out, I think last year or maybe earlier this year.
The tag bow from last year. Yeah.
That like dabbles in it, and I think you could see them sort of figuring it out in real time. And this EP has me so excited for the new album.
Yeah,
because
Lucky Styles very, very
that,
soon, like in the next 2 weeks, I believe.
Yes.
And like I feel
Less
like
than a
they've
week,
had those
actually.
two styles like both down pat. Like you can hear the individual parts of them. Like
Mhm.
you know, they do them on separate tracks, but like each one you're like, oh, they're really good at both of these things. It's just like I wish they could blend them together more cohesively. And like the Brazil, I believe the song on this is called, like, the big one. That song.
Insane.
Oh my god, they figured it out. They've cracked the code, and I'm just like, this is the like. This is one of the bands that helped me like finally crack my brain open with shoegaze, because I was like, oh, I get where they're coming from. Like they're sickos.
Yeah. What I'll say, the country western stuff on this split does not do it for me. Holy moly, am I like immediately
I
out
like
after
the
those
country
first two
western
songs?
stuff.
Like I think their EP's pretty good. I like, but they're just like they're kind of having fun on this one. And Godspeed, do what you want to do. Not for me.
I loved the first song of the country western split. I like it. As someone who country westerns should be more my thing than they are, because their solo stuff, their main stuff is like more straight ahead slowcore. But I really liked how they kind of dabbled in some of the electronic stuff on this one, and I think Lung particularly works really well. Although I do agree in general, like country western are a band I have not quite yet bought all the way into the country western hype, but I liked their half of this EP quite a lot. Anyway,
Mm-hmm. It's a good EP. I like it a lot.
Oh, shout out to Top Shelf Records. Go support them. Buy some stuff. Buy a shirt. Whatever. They've got the whole situation with their distribution getting all fucked up, which was really shitty. But a lot of people have supported their Kickstarter, and go check out that album, the Tagabo album, when it comes out, and also an album I'm not talking about this week because it's not technically out yet. But the new Knife Play album is so fucking sick. Probably the best shoegaze album of the year, although it's not really straight ahead shoegaze. Whatever.
Let's talk about the best album of the year. Let's talk about the best album of 2022.
Yes,
the best thing I've ever heard in my life.
Oh my god,
Malone, Living Torch.
Listen, so we say all this, and y'all are gonna like y'all are gonna hear us describe us, and you're gonna be like, what the fuck, really? Like this is the one, but like it's hard to explain. Like
it is hard to explain.
Of this.
It's very hard.
Although I will say, as I try to move us into the lightning round, our friend Lily is going to be making an appearance, has made an appearance, hasn't come out yet, on the Hot Singles podcast, in which she attempted to break my own record of just having broken the Hot Singles episode length record. Lily is dropping a manifesto on us. This is her album of the year, very clearly. And so Lily is going to say more compelling things about what makes this record like one of the most substantive and important like ambient drone albums of the last 10 years. But here's the thing, just put it on, it sounds good. Like it's a 30-minute piece record that is both incredibly satisfying in the first half, but also the first half is really just a way to sort of set your brain up for the second half to like start doing roundhouse kick combos on your face. It is so good. I listened to this album for the first time on the plane back from Pitchfork, and this is
ma'am.
S tier plane music. You're not going to get better plane music.
It's an 18-minute track and a 15-minute track, and Kali Malone is sort of a modern maestro of the pipe organ. She just gets on those keys and goes nutty with it.
That is her primary instrument.
And so The Sacrificial Code was one of my favorite records of 2019, and that is a nearly 2-hour collection of like crazy dark atmosphere. Like, it sounds like Zola Jesus type stuff without any vocalization on it. It's just like dark, moody, atmospheric drone organ music. And so for Living Torch, it's the same sort of composition, but no organ. It's like totally droning, echoey type stuff with a bunch of like synths and brass instrumentation, and it's just like a fucking crazy impressive piece of music put together, and it is completely like far and away the most all-encompassing thing I've heard all year. Like it is a vivid mind palace that Malone has concocted here, and I would be shocked if anything tops it for my record of the year as well. It is like an insanely impressive, just like masterpiece of composition. It's a beautiful thing to listen to and behold. It's really all I have to say about it. It's so good. You should listen to it.
It's like I put this on. I'm working a 9 to 5 these days, and I put it on in the office, and I was like, I just for like 30 minutes, I just felt like completely transported out of my chair. I was just like, like, and normally with ambient stuff, I'm always just like, well, this is pleasant, but it doesn't really like fully envelop me. But this one just like. When I hit part 2, I was like going off into space at my desk.
A lot of my job these days is like mindlessly writing emails or doing data entry, and so I'm getting a torch, maybe even 2 torches in on average once a day every week. So
yeah, I need to get back to the torch grind. I got really distracted.
I hit the torch. I hit the torch 24/7. I stay torched up. Torch gang. We're taking over the podcast.
I haven't been torching like I need to because I've been distracted.
The torch stays living is all I have to say.
By some other things.
We should move on, but
yes, it is lightning round time. So Matty, go.
In 2018, Malone asked us, "Were we trying to get the pipe?" All right, moving on.
Drone bitches tour coming to a city near you.
That is the end of our main discussions. It is time for lightning round. I only put 3 records on my list. Rose only put 5. Jackie put 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18.
Some of those are EPs. And
most of them. There are 13 albums here.
Mostly, I'm just gonna like most of these are gonna 18. Get like a sentence. Like I promise I'm not gonna drone on. But we'll
again. Jackie does not understand the meaning of what a lightning round is, but that does not matter. Jackie is my good friend, and
lightning
I love
means
her.
Quick. It does not mean brief. All right.
Anyways, all right.
Go fast.
Anyways, okay, it's my lightning round. I got 3 records I want to talk about very briefly. The new PHONY record, At Some Point You Stop. I wrote about this one for Pitchfork. I did not get to say my whole truth on this record because it turns out when you're writing for the biggest music publication on the planet, or at least one of the biggest, they're going to cut out a lot of things you wanted to say, which is fine. I understand. This is, for me, is a record that feels like the 5th wave emo equivalent to Blonde. It's a great record. This album rocks. It's very, very good. If you like some of the more indie rocky Joyce Manor stuff, but kind of done a little more, I'm trying to find a little spacier. This is it. This is a really good record. I like it quite a bit. Obviously, because I wrote a very positive review. Next up, I know we were just talking about how we're all kind of sick of British post-punk and all that stuff. Every now and then I get suckered in, and this is one where I'm kind of suckered in. This new Robocobra Quartet record. This kind of feels like what Black Country New Road should have been, in my opinion. Definitely not as good as some of the early Black Country New Road material, but it does scratch an itch that I had with those early songs and the really great stuff on that first Black Country record. So I recommend it if you still aren't sick of the British post-punk stuff. I think it's quite good. And then finally, this new Joe record, Decide, of course, Joe being the artist alias of Joe Keery, Steve from Stranger Things. For you might be going and being like, oh, this is like an actor's vanity project. It like kind of is as inherently, but like he was in fucking Post Animal before he got famous. Like he's got chops. This is a really good synth pop record, a good like kind of 80s pastiche synth pop rock record. It's kind of what Tame Impala should be. It's really good. I like it quite a bit. But yeah, it's very fun. That's all I gotta say. That's my lightning round. Rose, you're up to bat.
Okay, first up, I'm going to debut a new segment that will never be heard on this podcast again after today. The Merge Records Power Hour, because they released 2 records on September 30th that I think are pretty good. First up, the new Lambchop record. This is an album that is very difficult to describe to people and sell people on, because it's like, you have to have the context of this guy's entire career, like Pitchfork compared it to Jean-Luc Godard's Goodbye to
Oh,
Language.
hell yeah.
Which makes a lot of sense, having seen about 30 minutes of Goodbye to Language before realizing, oh, I don't have 3D glasses. And also, I have not watched nearly enough Jean-Luc Godard movies to enjoy that. So it is like a guy who is like pretty well versed in like traditional country songwriting, making a deconstructionist electronic music record that indulges in a lot of different styles. Like there's hints of disco and singer-songwriter and of course country stuff on here in a way that feels very, very earnest and beautiful. It is so hard to explain. I would recommend, instead of listening to this, if you are not familiar with Lambchop, go listen to Nixon and Flotus, Flotus. That does not stand for First Lady of the United States. That stands for Love Often Turns Us Still.
Flying Lotus? They put out a new album after You're Dead, finally?
No, he hasn't been back since 2014. Anyway, the other record in this batch, the boys are back in town, baby. Titus and Andronicus, The Will to Live. I like their last two. I love their last two. I think A Productive Cough was overhated, very overhated. An Obelisk was a record that unfortunately kind of came off as an apology just because of like the timing and the slightness of it, but like still some pretty good songs on them. I saw them live that year and I was just like, dang, these guys have still got it. Like I think they could make another album if they really wanted to that was really good, and this is that album. Like they finally stopped pretending to be like, you know, like a young punk band that's like into like, you know, making some rebellious rock music and just making like very big, you know, like kind of gestural statements like a lot of classic dad rock bands do. Like this is just a really nice like hour-long slab of guitars. I'm just like, yeah, I can turn my brain off and like really vibe out to the riffs and like also hear Patrick talking about like kind of the elemental nature of like man's folly, if you will. You know, like describing God, Mother Nature, and man himself as the nuclear family. It's like, yeah, he's on some shit like he always is. Like Patrick Stickles has never not been on some shit, but it's really good, really good. Recommend if you love guitars. Next up, Billy Woods. The man put out Ethiops earlier this year. Everyone loves that one. They're like, that's great rap record. But this is the one for me. He put out a surprise album last week that was called Church, which was fully produced by Messiah Music, who does a lot of production on Arm & Hammer records. Really solid stuff. This is like, if you were kind of left off of Ethiops a bit by like the much lighter touch that Preservation put on that, like I feel like this one will get you right back in, because this is like really just punchy, like drum heavy stuff. Just super good, super good. Next up, band I just got into several months ago. Like I feel like this is one of those ones where like people would be like, man, you really didn't get into this until this year. But Boris, the third edition of their series of albums entitled Heavy Rocks. This one's got a leopard print cover, if that tells you anything.
It rules so much.
It's so cool.
Yeah, that they have just called an album the same title 3 different times about 10 years apart in their career each time is great. I love it so much.
It's a good bit on their
They're
part.
not calling it Heavy Rocks 2, Heavy Rocks 3. They're just like, we're
Heavy
putting
Rocks
out
3
Heavy
still
Rocks
rocking.
again.
It's just Heavy Rocks again, because like literally these are all like them like riffing, like a lot of these are them kind of riffing on like popular like classic metal stuff, you know, like especially like just like 90s and 80s shit, and you're just like, this is like them clearly having fun instead of trying to do like a more intellectual drone exercise, like because you know they're the drone metal guys, for better or worse. That's been the reputation they've been saddled with like Flood and Pink and stuff like that. But like this is the records where they have fun, and this is like, of the 3 Heavy Rocks, this is not the best one, but it's the one where you can clearly tell they're having the most fun. Like they're just riffing out and having so much fun. And this gets into my other point that I'll leave to later, but first I gotta talk about More Mother Jazz Codes. If you're now, of course, More Mother, like artist who is apples and oranges with, you know, the people I'm about to compare her with, but like she did a really good one with Billy Woods a couple of years ago called Brass, and like she's always been on that more like abstract leaning side of like, or mainly like abstract production, I could say, because she writes very clearly like inspired by like, you know, just a lot of traditional poetry stuff. Like she literally does poetry stuff with an irreversible entanglements, you know, like that's her role with them when they're performing live. And like she is a very concrete writer, but I feel she has always been a little bit off in the abstract zone for me, with production, and like this is the moment where I feel like she's really roped me in a lot better. Like because this one, like production wise, it reminds me of like late era records, like specifically back when like R.A.P. Ferrero was still calling himself Milo, like those last couple records of his, but like way tighter focus. Like Jazz Codes is a really good record if you're like looking for something that really gets at the idea. Like it's a record all about like playing on genre, you know, and the way we perceive it, and like the way it kind of boxes in people by like similarly to the way like race does. Like it's playing with a lot of really heavy intellectual ideas that I think are super interesting for a record to explore. Like I highly recommend both Jazz Codes and her record with 700 Bliss, Nothing to Declare, which I believe I talked about on the last recommendation corner or whatever that we did, you know, lightning round. But like more Mother, good year for her, like really good year. And then this is the last ramble I want to make, which is I haven't been listening to that much new music this quarter because I've been listening to nothing but Boris and Prince. I've been getting into those two artists for the first time, and you may say, Rose, Prince is one of the most acclaimed artists of all time. How good can he be? Buddy, you gotta listen to his records. You gotta listen to all of them. I've been listening to all of them. Even the stuff that people say is bad is so cool. This man is so cool. You should go listen to all of the Prince records. That is my recommendation.
Prince, he's cool, folks. You heard it here
He's
first.
so cool.
Many people are saying this.
You know who else is cool? The man by the name of Paul Banks, motherfucker.
No, that's just no. Come on.
All right, I promise I'm going to try to be as quick as possible with a lot of these, but folks, you didn't think I was letting this episode end without talking about the new goddamn Interpol album, especially because this is the best Interpol album since Turn On the Bright Lights. It is the best album they have made that is not called Turn On the Bright Lights. This album,
Jackie, I want to respect you. Evol's, that's the one, right? That one was good. Evol.
Antics is the one that Evil's all.
No.
What are you thinking of? You're thinking of something else.
I'm thinking of El Pintor. I don't know why I said
Jesus
Evil.
Christ. Also,
yeah.
AJ, you were getting the song Evil confused with
El
the
Pintor
album Evil, which is a future album.
I know. It was, and a Sonic Youth album. El Pintor is great.
I think El Pintor is fine. I'm definitely more positive than people who hate it because I'm just an Interpol sucker, but it is not very high in my rankings at all. But the other side of Make Believe presents the concept of what if there was an entire Interpol album that was like at the NYC Hands Away, like more muted, less driving, more atmospheric. This is Interpol's we're kind of washed up whatever. It's not like a mature record because it's still fucking Paul Banks. Like he is unchangeable in that way, but it is there like we grew up and we moved out to the West Coast. Like the opening song on this record starts out by shouting out driving down the PCH highway, and immediately you're just like disoriented. You're like, they allowed this man to leave Manhattan? Like, what's going on here? Something is wrong. But immediately you realize that, like, this is just the strongest record they've released in a while, but it's like going back to basics even more so than the last record is, which the last record, Marauder, is basically like messy Turn On the Bright Lights. Like it's kind of got a looser, noisier sound to it. And this is produced by Flood of U2 and Nine Inch Nails and Smashing Pumpkins, etc. fame. And this record sounds like $1 million. It is so well produced and really great, and I think it's really great. I can't stop listening to it. I think that Tony and Fables are two of the best singles they've done in a while. I think Mr. Credit is an incredible song. Something Changed is literally Paul Banks doing a national song. Passengers a knockout. Greenwich is really good. Grand Hotel has some of the most Paul Banks-ass lyrics of all time. I love this record. It's really great. If you don't like Interpol, you're not gonna like it. It's the same, you know? Like, either you like them or you don't. But if you're someone that does like Turn On the Bright Lights and you like Interpol at all, you should listen to this album. I promise you it's good. Anyways, moving on. Quinn, self-titled. I was not really familiar with Quinn at all before hearing this record, partly because Quinn is one of a million artists that got lazily and loosely generalized as being hyperpop because she uses autotune. That's like basically it. But this record, I think especially, does a really good job at completely shaking off the hyperpop label, because if you call this album hyperpop, you are just outing yourself as not knowing how music works, because this is much more of a like Earl Sweatshirt, Toro y Moi kind of like rap and R&B, but in this very kind of loose sort of sketchbook type structure where every song on this record just has so many fucking ideas on it, and they all segue into each other in these really interesting ways. And there are few first listen experiences I had this year that were as surprising, as exciting, as hilarious as my first time listening to the Quinn record. Most notably, the interlude track "I See You," in which Quinn talks about how she's in your house, fucking on your wife, eating all your snacks. It's hilarious. Quinn is so talented. You should check out the Pitchfork profile on Quinn that Mano Sincerian wrote. Really fantastic. This is, I promise, the second to last time Ethel Cain will come up on this podcast. Matthew Tomasi, who is the producer of Preacher's Daughter, who plays the guitar parts on Preacher's Daughter, has a project called 9 Million, which this is his first release as 9 Million. He's also in a hardcore band called Friction, and he also produces all of the Nicole Dollanganger albums. He's a man of many hats, most of them guitar music related. And this record not only has a credited feature from Nicole Dollanganger, but an uncredited feature from Ethel Cain on the first song. This is a mixtape, described as a mixtape that jumps around from mostly shoegaze kind of oriented stuff, but there's also some slowcore, some just kind of alt rock stuff. It's really, 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 really good. I love it so much. I keep listening to it over and over again. Obviously biased due to the Nicole Ethel Cain connection and due to the fact that Matthew Tomasi is now my friend. But I love this record. It's really fucking great. Shout out to him. Go check it out if you liked the Ethel Cain album. If you like shoegaze at all, I think you'll dig it. This is the brief bleep corner. Here are some electronic records that came out this quarter that I've been really digging that we didn't get to earlier. My favorite of the bunch is probably the Tomu DJ album, Half Moon Bay, which is like combining really blissful ambient house techno styling with like much faster kind of footworky beats. It's awesome. It's so sick. If you like Ski Mask or Zyla or anything like that, go listen to Tomu DJ. It's very, very, very relaxing, but also innovative and exciting. Rashika Nayar, this is one of the most hyped ambient albums of the year, Heaven Come Crashing. It's kind of the counterpoint to Callie Malone, because Callie Malone is very much of the less notes mindset, and Rashika Nayar this is a very trancey, epic, cinematic ambient album, like an ambient album that's trying to sound really big and have these really like not ambient sort of structures. Like these songs really grab you by the neck. And I think it's really, really good. I softened on it like a tiny, tiny bit after being completely fucking floored by it on first listen, but I don't know. I might like this more than the Callie Malone album, even though I think the Callie Malone album is better. I don't know. I need to suss out.
This one's really good. This one's like
it is really, really good.
My second favorite bleep album of the year for sure.
Highly recommend that. Highly recommend the DJS and SV1 album called Voids. I had never heard of either of these people before, and I don't really know what to say about it besides that it's really good bleep bloop music and you should listen to it. Similarly, Jigo is a producer I've kind of had my eye on him for a while, who's made some stuff that I enjoy, but he put out a new record called Cerulean that has a Tom VR feature on it. So if you liked the Tom VR album from last year, if you like Quartet, if you like any kind of thinky, kind of low-key beat-oriented electronic music that over the course of it proceeds to work its way up into higher and higher energy. Like it starts out with very ambient stuff, and as the record goes on, it gets heavier and more breaks-y. Really good stuff. Highly recommend that one. Sweet Pill, Where the Heart Is. This band fucking rules. If you like the Pool Kids record, if you like the band Hop Along, if you like kind of shouty emo stuff that has a very melodic indie rock sensibility and some of those tiny moving parts-esque guitar parts, oh buddy, the Sweet Pill album makes a perfect double feature with the Pool Kids album. I think they just work really well together, and I would like to see those two bands go on tour. I think that'd be fun. Flo Milli, You Still Here Ho? is the question that Flo Millie has to ask for you. I hope she never abandons this titling scheme. I hope every single album is she's continuing to ask you why you're still here. This is one of my 2 favorite rap albums of the year. I love it so much. Flo Millie shit. It's just you're not gonna have a more fun time listening to an album this year. I dare you. Lil Silva, Yesterday is Heavy. This album is so good. Oh my god. I was listening to it again today and I was like, I might be underrating this record. This record is really amazing. Lil Silva is like a UK electronic music producer guy who also can sing very well. And this record is sort of him sort of debuting himself as sort of a singer-songwriter in addition to a producer. And it also has an insanely stacked feature list, which most notably, there are not 1 but 2 Sampha features on this record. And I think that's the best comparison point. If you like Sampha's music at all, if you like Subtract and that kind of UK dance music, pop music sort of stuff, this is really good. There's a Little Dragon feature. There's a Bad Bad Not Good feature. There's a Charlotte Day Wilson feature. There's a Serpent with Feet feature. There's 2 Sampha features, and both the Sampha songs are like 10 out of 10 knockouts. Really fucking great album. Speaking of rap albums, my other favorite rap album of the year is the deluxe version of the Kamaya EP. Basically, I haven't really seen someone go for this. As someone who usually gets sick of deluxe albums, this is the first time it made sense, where it's like she released a 7-track album earlier this year that kind of felt like a big EP, and then the deluxe version of the album was essentially another EP stapled onto that. So now it's a 15-track full album. And unlike the Beach House multiple chapter EP rollout, I actually really liked this rollout because I think both halves of it work well together as a front to back listen. But I also think that I liked being able to digest them separately. The Dejloaf song on the deluxe version, that's just Dejloaf and Kamaya is a perfect combo. And also Brand New Rolex, Song of the Summer. The piano on that is so beautiful. This is my other favorite rap album of the year. Kamaya is great, just like one of the best West Coast Bay Area hip hop artists out there. And this is, I think, the best thing she's ever done. Really, really great. Oh, I don't know why I didn't include this in the bleep corner, but whatever. Hudson Mohawk, Cry Sugar. It's probably the best Hudmo album. Really, really fucking great stuff. There's other people that have written a lot about this record. I'm sad that I'm not going to Hudson Mohawk tomorrow night. I still could go, but I'm tie-tie. I don't think I can do it. But yeah, Hudson Mohawk, Cry Sugar. Really, really, really fucking good. My big takeaway from this record is that Kanye really shouldn't have pissed off and alienated Hudson Mohawk, because boy, would he have done a better job making Jesus is King than whoever Kanye tasked to make Jesus King, because the way that this record fuses like gospel and rave music together is insane and should not work, and he totally pulls it off. And now, here's the last time I will bring up Ethel Cain in this record, Bedlocked, self-titled. I checked out this record because Ethel Cain recommended it to me. That was enough for me to listen to literally anything, but boy, howdy do I like this Bedlocked album so fucking much. My pitch on this album is that if Lil Peep had not died, he would have eventually made an album that sounds like this. Like, this is an album that sounds like the rock music influences that Lil Peep was pulling from being done as a straight ahead rock album that songwriting wise does kind of feel vaguely of a piece with kind of current pop music and rap music and sort of stuff like that, but he's not rapping on here. This is a shoegaze, slowcore, emo album first and foremost, and I think it is a really damn good shoegaze, slowcore, emo album. It's like exactly my kind of. It's got enough like oomph to it and like energy and propulsion in the drums that it doesn't ever get too sloggy. But then when it wants to get sloggy, like there's a song in this record that brings back the nasty riff but slower. But instead of slower, it's bring back the nasty riff but slowcore, and it's great. I love it. And then last but not least, there's been a bunch of really good EPs this month, so I just want to shout out several of these real quick. Sun's Signature EP, which is the project of Elizabeth Fraser of Cocteau Twins. It really, really, really fucking good. Just like gorgeously produced. Probably the best like post Cocteau Twins thing I've heard Elizabeth Fraser do ever. Anita Velveeta, Biblically Accurate Fursona EP. This is just a classic example of trans women putting all the fucking ideas into something. This thing has the ideas dial in the hot position. And I think the best endorsement I can give of it is that unlike a lot of other fifth wave emo albums, this album, this EP does things that I would normally find very annoying, and I never get annoyed by this EP. I think it is really clever and funny and catchy and just like hilarious. Like the way it will transition from like noodly emo to a song that sounds like fucking Caro Caro Bonito to like drum and bass black dresses stuff to a song called Incel Rock. Like this is just like one of the most insane EPs you will listen to all year, but also it doesn't feel like it collapses under the weight of its ideas. LST, Closer EP. LST is a new artist signed to We Did It, which is one of my favorite LA-based electronic music record labels, Shlomo, Ground is Lava, Juice Jackal, etc. And those three guys are the producers of this new EP from LST, who is a pop artist. This is her debut EP. It's really, really fucking good. If you like Sky Ferreira, if you like Ethel Cain, if you like that kind of synth, Ethel Cain's earlier synth pop stuff is what I would say, more so than her new stuff. But like Sky Ferreira is, I think, the most accurate comp. Very good synth pop stuff that doesn't like just finally a synth pop EP that isn't just 80s pastiche. Was like, thank God, some good fucking food. Anyways, Strange Joy, hardcore band from Texas. What? Jackie's talking about a hardcore band? Twist. They're a shoegaze hardcore band. That's why I like them. This is one of my favorite EPs of the year. Just like 5 tracks, 12 minutes, just ripper after ripper, but like putting a shoegaze sheen on otherwise straightforward hardcore music. Really good. Check it out. Highly recommend. And last but not least, that EP was just called 5 tracks, and this EP is just called 4 songs. This is Blood Orange. Blood Orange, he put out an EP. It's called 4 songs. Probably the best. I mean, I think part of why it works so well is just because it's brief, and so there's no opportunity for Blood Orange to like go on too long or dive into not as good ideas or waste too much of the record on like interludes and stuff. But I think that in the sort of spirit of the Angel's Pulse mixtape that he dropped, which I thought was really good and had some really great songs on it, this feels like the most kind of loose thing he's made in a while, while also being just rock solid in that all 4 of these tracks are great Blood Orange songs. I really love the Erica DeCassier feature on the last track. I really like Jesus Freak Lighter, and I think Wish is probably my favorite of the bunch. But yeah, that is the end of Lightning Round, finally.
All right, AJ, let's go.
Okay. Talked about a lot of good Bleep albums so far, so 2 that I want to shout out that are in my wheelhouse are Sam Prekop and John McIntyre's Sons Of, which also one of the best album covers of the year. 2 gorgeous looking kitty cats. This is just great, like ambient bleep blooping. If you like Aphex Twin, you would like this. And then the James Devane album Beauty is Useless is a sort of sparse, echoey piano ambient record. So like I'm high on the Nils Fromm train, but he's kind of been putting out mid lately, and this is a nice antidote to that. I also was pleasantly surprised by the new Muramasa album, Demon Time, which is like a really great sort of, more so than anything else, it's like a really great like sample platter of hyperpop and glitch adjacent artists. It's got some really great features, and it's a really like pleasant, brief listen. So I thought it was super fun.
It's very solid. It's a little bit kind of resume CV-ish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When a producer is making an album that doesn't feel like an album as much as an audition tape of like, look at all these artists that I work with and whatever. But I also think it is one of the best Muramasa. As someone who's been following this guy's career since 2015, and has liked all of his music to kind of varying degrees, and like has seen him live once with Neo. I like this record. I think Cat Zen's review is very good, which is just that like with any kind of producer curated record like this, it's going to be a mixed bag. Like,
it knew exactly how long to be, because if it had overstayed its welcome, it would have got very grating. But I think it was like perfectly paced. Hey, this is the AJ Moser Eats Crow segment. The new Beyonce album. Any of y'all heard of this? Wow. It's incredibly good. It's like a masterpiece. I think it's the best Beyonce album ever. It's insanely good. Immaculate production, great hooks. Every song is catchy. It's tremendous. Break My Soul is still a bad song, but it's the only bad song on this album. The new Florist record is really good. Like, sucks that this had to come out in the same year as the Big Thief record, because it's basically doing the same thing, but it is super fun. Holy Fawn, Dimensional Bleed. This is an L. They missed for me on this one. I wish I liked this one more. I have yet to crack this album, and I don't think I ever will. Yeah.
I'm not that negative on it. I'm somewhere in between they've done it again.
It should have been a fucking like slam dunk, eyes closed layup, and it wasn't.
Like it's good. It's just it's not like they were lining up for the big one.
Yeah,
they didn't hit the big one.
The new Sarah Davachi record is incredible. Like total sort of polar opposite of the conversation on the Collie Malone album, where that was like, oh, we're taking this dense atmospheric thing and like blowing it out and seeing how much deeper we can go. This Sarah Davachi album is like, look, you liked the sparse dark shit, we're gonna fucking double down and make it real spooky and scary. Good stuff. And then Mr. Too Damn Indie Rock, the new Death Cab for Cutie album, very good. Pretty fun. There's some good stuff on there. Check it out.
Alrighty, that's it. We're done. We did it. We did, everybody. Let's we'll clap. We did it. We talked about
I thought
all
about
the albums in quarter
three. I
three.
thought about just despite Matty bringing up an album that came out on literally the last day of quarter three that I listened to for the first time today, which is the new Millie album. But I'm not going to do that to you. I'm not going to pull that shit.
I mean, yeah, there's probably shit that I forgot to mention. Like I said, this has been a good. So again, I will say,
I'm going to start
album-wise, I've
talking
been
about
iffy.
albums from Q4.
There's been some great songs that have come out this quarter. Check out the Matty Good Songs playlist. It's all the good songs this year. So it's over 25 hours now. A lot of good stuff this year.
Songs.
That's a whole damn day.
It's a whole damn day of songs. Oh, I forgot to mention the Secret Beach songs. The Secret Beach, good little kind of a Neil Young-esque indie rock record. Good stuff. All right, that's it. That's all I gotta say. Thank you everybody for listening. Let's see. I think next week we are finally doing our grocery store songs episode. our much delayed episode. We're finally doing that. And then I guess a quick update on the Hallow stream. We're doing a special charity live stream, or at least probably a charity live stream. We're still kind of working out some of the details on that. We'll have more official details hopefully soon, but more likely than not, it's going to take place on Sunday, October 30th. We'll announce a time at some point once we kind of get some more stuff coordinated, but most likely date is going to be on October 30th. Am I saying, is that correct, AJ? I'm trying to remember.
I think so. I should be home. Yeah.
Okay. So Sunday, October 30th, mark it on your calendars. We'll have a time and some more details set soon, like charity, who's all going to be on, all that shit.
Buy a new pair of pants now, because you're going to poop yourself with how scary the stream's going to be. Grant,
it's going to be spooky.
No, Grant McSpooky is in charge of the playlist for this stream, so you know it's going to get cursed.
Yeah, this is the first time. This is the first time we're doing a stream where Gavin is not in charge of the playlist. So very excited to see what that is like.
I haven't seen any of the videos that Grant has found, but I'm expecting that there's an entire puppet
I've seen
corner.
The list. It's bangers, folks. It's bangers.
Oh God. Anyway, so yeah, October 30th, Hallow stream. We got a bunch of episodes coming up. We've got a great month of pods planned ahead. FYC episode 2 on Cheem's Guilty Pleasure is going to be coming out. I think when this podcast goes up, it'll be coming out this Wednesday on our Patreon, and then a week later on our regular feeds. So that is it. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.